Week 3 of the Wild Rift EMEA Championship starts today, or continues today, I should say, as we are looking at the upper bracket. That's what starts today. Yesterday, we had 2 more series in the lower bracket as blows. They kind of defied all expectations, came in with the upset. It looked dire for them in Game 3, but this massive fight around the Elder Dragons secured their spot in round 2 of the lower bracket with a very unexpected win. It was only our Spanish broadcast colleagues that predicted blows, but they're the ones that come out on top yesterday in our first series. Our second series of the day was perhaps even more entertaining as Control took on Mood, and Komoto put his stamp on this game. From that support role, earning the MVP, huge plays on both Galio and Thresh, and Control, they've been fan favorites, and now finally they've won a series, taking the series 2-0 over Mood Gaming. Today, 4 Titans of Wild Rift are going to take to the Rift. We're ready to get the show on the road.
Welcome to the official Riot Games Wild Rift EMEA Championship.
Everybody round here know we get hype. Everybody round.
Good afternoon, welcome everybody to the Wild Rift EMEA Championships. It is day 3 of week 3, and we're about to take things to the next level. This is where we put the pedal to the metal, get that accelerator going, and get some of our banger series. I'm Stress, joined by Stuart and Exscoundrel. Brought out the big guns today, just stacking everything. We've got stacked games, stacked caster lineup, and no disrespect to everybody else, but I think anytime that we get Keenan on board with Stuart, that's what we want to hear. Anyway, I'm going to get into today's matchups. Keenan, you're joining us. How are you feeling?
Sorry, mate. I'm just laughing at you flaming all our colleagues.
No blame.
No, I'm really happy getting to do some analysis again today, and we have got an absolutely insane set of matches. Of course, entering into the top 8 now of our winners bracket, you're going to start to see some of the best teams in our entire region come blows to blows, and that is going to provide some really high quality Wild Rift.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're focusing in on the upper bracket. So we got Zero Zone and Viv, Game Lord and Queso. Next week's series are great as well with Rix and Navi, Formulation and Team Dark. And we are going through the open bracket. We can take a look at how yesterday's results will actually pan things out on the lower bracket as well. We saw some impressive performances yesterday. Stuart, if there was one team that you think stands out from the lower bracket, who would it be?
I'm going to have to say Control. I think you already know my answer before you even ask the question. But yeah, Control looked really dominant yesterday. Close game was kind of the surprise factor for me, to be honest. Taking down Entropic, but a lot of really close games in the lower bracket. But it's all about the upper bracket today.
It is, absolutely. We got Zero Zone and Viv and Game Lord versus Team Queso. Both of these series exciting for their own reasons. I think the big names are in our second series of the day, but Kenan, I know you weren't with us in week 1 when we were doing Zero Zone and Viv, but I'm sure you've taken a look back. Like, that series as well can't be underestimated, right?
Yeah, look, you've got, I would say, Viv like a dark horse for the whole competition, and Zero Zone really proved what they were capable of in that first week as well. So, you've got 2 teams that are actually really strong, should be respected, and I think it's going to prove to be a really great series.
I agree. I totally agree on the way that things are panning out. Let's take a look at the predictions, because a lot of us have been wrong, actually, on some of these series. I think, despite my transgressions as we came into the broadcast today, I think when you look at it, like, the prediction games have gone away, especially for me. I've had some horrendous predictions so far. I know the rest of you are hanging on in there, but nobody had blows predicted from our side, other than Carmeline yesterday picking up that prediction. And today, we're all unanimous, so we're probably going to be wrong on this. Stuart, do you think that Carmeline's going to be correct here on the Queso pick and on the Zero Zone pick?
I think the first series, I think Viv definitely do have it, but I think the second series, the 2 big titans, Game Lord versus Team Queso, could go either way. I think Game Lord slightly nudge over as a little bit of a favorite, but honestly, Team Queso is still a really strong competition, and that's going to be our big series of the day.
It is. There's a reason I went to Stuart's predictions, because when we take a look at the community tweets and how things are going, people are just letting Stuart have it. Stuart's out here trying to make these analytical predictions, and Spanish broadcast team and no, Spain. Viva España. Just get those Spanish predictions. Keenan, when we look at how kind of these prediction games are going, it's always a bit of fun, but is there any stock to be put in the likes of Blows Gaming the later we get on in this tournament? Because I think it becomes more and more difficult looking for that last spot, right?
You're putting me on the spot here.
I know. I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
I want to say yes, but I think based on what we've seen from our top 8, even from our top 8 in its entirety, I'd say no. I think there are definitely some teams within the top 8 that can cause upsets for our major players. But I think realistically, you know, the guys like WREC, the guys like Queso, the guys like Game Lord, they're the teams that are the most likely to claim the top end of the spots. But look, I'm happy to eat my words. I'm very happy to eat my words if things go the other way. But that's just my personal opinion.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I woke up and choose violence this morning, apparently. Like, I'm blaming everybody. It's a hype day. It's all good. All good fun here at the WREC DMA Championships. Xcoundrel, I'm going to let you go. Get ready for the rest of the broadcast. You'll be joining me later for an insane series between Game One and Team K, so that we're very much looking forward to. Our first series of the day, Stuart, you and I can jump into and get things going, because this is a series that when we looked at the bracket, we thought, okay, the first 4 teams, not so great, but actually we got proved wrong. And I think when we zoom in on the meta, I think this is an opportunity for our supports to really have their impact coming out of what we've seen in the changes in the last few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely yesterday's series, we saw a lot of high priority in support picks. We saw a lot of high priority on Galio, on Thresh as well, and all these roaming supports. And I think, you know, you'll see the supports today as well, just roaming around the map, getting the high priorities in draft as well, which we didn't really see in the first 2 weeks. So it's kind of the shift in meta, as you say, as well. You know, we even got a series yesterday where Set went completely through the entire series and didn't get picked or banned at all. So I'm liking the way the meta's looking at the moment. You know, more focus on supports, and supports don't really get to have that bit of shining light, but now we're actually getting to see that, you know, support lives matter as well.
Yes, supports are an important part of the way that, especially the way Kamulto played out that series for Control yesterday. Speaking of Control, we of course had them advance through the lower bracket, but that does mean we've already had 4 of our 16 teams knocked out. It's not the end of their tournament road in the sense of there's a last chance qualifier coming later on the road towards finals, but 4 teams have gone already and we're only on week 3. That feels like already quite a big departure.
Yeah, Principality, Supremacy, and Tropic and Mood Gaming all have been knocked out. They have to try and come through the last chance qualifier. But I like what we've seen from the teams anyway, especially in Tropic as well, as they were so close to getting the victory over Blows if it wasn't just for that last little team fight where Blows were able to win. But really excited to see more from the teams and more from the players, because they've been some really exciting games over the past few weeks.
Yeah, they really have done. I do feel like we're about to step it up another level, though, on the macro play especially. I think when you look at the series between Blows and Tropic, especially, I feel like there were just some windows that teams weren't capitalizing on a lot. And as you said, whether it's draft, whether it's macro play in game, I'm like, now we get to see the teams like Game Lord, who you and I have had the pleasure of casting a whole lot, where they're just aggressive at all moments. They're doing something and they're forcing you to fight them. And I think that really is the difference between our top 8 teams and the teams that have been in the lower brackets so far.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it a little bit yesterday as well. Like, we saw a lot of comfort picks coming out from the teams in the lower bracket, because they might not have like a real grasp of the meta yet, but they just want to get comfort picks because they know that if they get their comfort picks, they'll be able to play really well during the games and try and carry the games as well, which we saw like Ryder Zito yesterday picked that high priority Z, which we saw him pop off on as well. So, you know, when it comes to lower brackets, we're probably going to see that a lot more often. But as you said, you know, the upper brackets coming around now, all these teams are really good on multiple champions, and we're going to be really seeing how the meta is shaping up coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I feel like these are the kind of matchups where you can't let power picks through in exchange for comfort picks, right? So we're going to take a couple of moments, or at least I am, to calm down, because we're going to go to an interview with Mozilla from WREC alongside Xcoundrel.
Thank you very much, Stress. Mozilla, longtime friend, absolute baller coach here as well. I'm really excited to chat to you today. Let's talk a little bit about the meta, because I know that, you know, coming into the WREC European Championships, a lot of hopes with some of the new champions being released and some of the changes that we were going to see a bit of a shift in the meta. First of all, I want to kind of like take your thoughts on what the current meta is like, and are you, as a coach, happy with it, or would you like to see things shaken up?
I think the current meta is maybe a bit too stale for my liking, especially with the bruiser variety. Like in Baron lane and jungle, in mid lane even, you see almost exclusively bruisers. And because of that, there's very little ADC play as well, because bruisers are kind of the bane of every ADC. So you end up with a meta that's just like a mage scaling in bot lane. Meanwhile, bruisers are duking it out in the top lane. Everyone has a stone plate, everyone has a Sterex, no one dies. I would like to see maybe some changes to like the bruiser itemization, to like even that playing field for ADCs to actually be viable again, and for a bit more variety in at least the other roles as well.
Absolutely, I think that's pretty good assessment of where we are in the meta right now. Obviously, you're working with RICS and have been for some time. You've now got the chance to look at some of these top tier games in the upper bracket. Who do you think are your main competition in the top 8? You know, especially from the winners bracket side of things.
I mean, obviously, it's going to be next week Na'Vi. I feel like this is one of our biggest challenges in this bracket. And apart from that, it's likely going to be the winner of today's series, Team Queso against Gamelord. And we'll have to see and watch diligently and study our opponents.
I'm actually glad you mentioned Gamelord versus Queso, because I'd love to get your thoughts. I think there's a bit of a split opinion about who comes out on top here. Who do you think has the edge in the Gamelord Queso matchup?
I'm expecting Gamelord to win, but Team Queso has shown that they can be clutch, and especially Andres, who was like the main carry of the team. Basically, he has shown that he can stand up and basically put the team on his back multiple times. So I'm happy to see like how the new Team Queso roster with Joey and Methanout in bot lane and Veos in mid lane is going to shape up. But I think it's still more likely that Gamelord will win.
I think relatively fair opinion there, Mozilla. Honestly, massive thanks for coming to chat to us today, and obviously we get to see you guys in action next week, so good luck for your games heading into the next week of WRC. But of course you're going to stand on the sidelines and watch the games that we've got coming your way today. Now I'm going to hand it back over to Stress and Stuart before we get into our first game.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scoundrel and Mozilla. Always nice to hear from a coach's perspective. I think we're still so young in Wild Rift where coaching is not as defined as it is in other esports. So I love to see when teams actually have their coaches and you know, they're, for lack of a better term, switched on. It's always nice to see when a coach has input and that kind of thing that we can tap into. And as Example said, like Mozilla has been known in the League of Legends scene for quite some time. So very happy to hear about his thoughts on the meta. We are getting close to picks and bans for our first series of the day. But let's take a look at the rosters. It has been about 2 weeks since we saw these two teams. So important to take stock of who is on what side. So Zero Zone and ViV. For Zero Zone, it is Patterson, Labunia, Sefiro, Our Nation, and Fran. One change for ViV is Millip, Tyras, Sharks, and Kranix return, but this time it's Flower in the lineup, coming in instead of Ryu, who had an insane series, but we did hear in the interview Ryu was the substitute support, and it's Flower that should be the player that will be taking that role normally. Stuart, what's your thought about that change?
Yeah, it's a quite surprising one, I think, because I think a lot of people saw Ryu last week and they saw how well he performed, especially on Thresh as well, you know, roaming around the map. And we talked a little bit about roaming supports as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Flower now comes into the lineup. Obviously, he used to play for Mood Gaming before with some of these members before, so maybe they just play together a little bit more. They maybe know each other a little bit more. But I kind of feel a little bit upset for you as well, because I feel like you said, you know, last week he was really, really strong and he played really well. But that's 2 weeks ago now. We're gonna have to look forward and see what he could do with this thing, with this roster.
Exactly. I have visions of that Morgana play, just roaming, binding all the time, again and again. It's not just us that are keeping our eyes on the game. I know Scoundrel has a few things he wants to highlight before we get into our first draft.
Thank you very much, Stress. Yes, of course, we're going to start off with the Team ViV. I think they are an incredibly strategic team. I think they've got a lot of macro sense about them. And I think one thing that ViV have generally done really well has been drafting. So I think one of the strengths that we'll see from ViV will be in the draft phase and then how they approach the macro rotations around the map. That's where I feel that they have the strength in this particular matchup. But of course, we also have the other side, Z Nation. We have or Zero Zone, we have our Nation. He's an absolutely fantastic player, I think underrated by a lot of people coming into this particular tournament. And he even said in the interview to Stuart, you know, you guys underrated me on your tier list. He proved himself as a fantastic player on the side of Zero Zone. So I'm expecting to see some more big things from him today. But as the predictions, I think rightly have put it, ViV are kind of like the dark horses for the tournament right now. They've got some really, really highly skilled players. They're very sensible with how they approach the game. And whilst they may not look like so much compared to Team Quesos and Game Lords and Rixes, they could definitely throw some spanners in the works and potentially even sneak their way through to the very end of this tournament. So keep your eyes on ViV. I think they're a really high prospect for the rest of the WREC. Thank you very much. I'll see you back to Stress and Stuart for the game.
Thanks, Scoundrel. To quote our Nation directly, let's go to your list as Stuart. All the way back. That feels so much longer than week one, like 2 weeks ago.
Feels like months ago now.
It really does. Like, there's been so much shade since that I'm it feels like it's been a long time, but in a good way. We've had so many good games so far. We've had enough time to really see the meta kind of like percolate and really distill down into what we're getting. And I think if Ryu was still in this game, I would say Morgana would be even more contested before, because now I'm remembering like our Nation's Morgana like AP carry bot lane plays. Like we crowned him king of stasis, where he was going in, hitting 5 people with the ultimate, hitting stasis, surviving, and just kind of weathering through everything. And as we head into our first picks and bans of the day, that surely has to be a red side ban.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it already, you know, the Morgana priority. We saw a little bit of Morgana priority yesterday as well. And I think even after the changes as well, I feel like she's still a really, really strong pick. She still has a lot of wave clear. She still has a lot of damage and a lot of crowd control available to her. And I think the main reason as well is like the boots upgrade as well. You know, being able to get stasis really early, being like it being really cheap as well. It's being able to ultimate and stasis so you can get that route as well. But first few bans are coming already. Varus, interesting enough, on the blue side, and Lee Sin is a red side ban for ViV so far.
Yeah, we never really see it here. Jax is a jungle that's going to get banned away, has been really prominent in the last couple of weeks. The Lee Sin normally doesn't get first picked, so this is one of these situations where we're like, okay, interesting that would be so high priority. We're going to have to track that. This does leave us in a situation where Morgana, Jace, Garen, Set are all available, other than Jace now has gone. So only one of those 3 is going to be banned out, and that leaves us in basically a take 1, pick 2 situation, but it's Corki on red side. Very different to yesterday's drafts.
Yeah, very, very different. We're seeing the Jace ban. Again, Set is open, and we get it this time. We get the Set first pick. But I think what ViV Esports actually done really well is that they've left both Morgana and Set open, and you obviously have the Camille open as well. I'd be very surprised if they don't actually take Morgana here as well, because I feel like that's definitely going to be a priority for Zero Zone. They take the Gragas instead, so they have the engage of Camille, but they also take away the disengage of Gragas as well, because if you play Gragas against Camille, you can use that explosive cast to knock Camille out of her ultimate, so she doesn't have that lockdown. But these picks are coming in really, really thick and fast.
It's all bruises. So far, 4 bruises picked, 3 of them AD, 1 of them AP. We have seen Gragas flex a little bit between mid, top, and jungle. Thresh taken, we talked about rise of priority on supports. Morgana falling all the way through this draft until this point may come from the fact that there are so many AP bot laners available, and this is lightning fast. It's an Olaf taken now. I'm starting to wonder whether Yuumi goes up slightly in priority, but we'll talk about that later through this draft. So lots of key picks. Orianna, Morgana, still up. Ziggs is available for those AP bot laners. A little bit more necessary on the side of Zero Zone because they picked themselves the Set and the Renekton, indicating they're likely to be double AD lanes.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, Set could be in the jungle, Set could be mid or top, Renekton could be mid or top as well. They do have that flexibility, but I feel like, you know, for the side of ViV, they do have the Gragas, they do have that little bit source of AP damage. We have seen jungle Gragas, we've seen mid lane Gragas, we've seen tank top lane Gragas, support Gragas, so again, another flex pick as well. Gragas, interesting enough, being banned away for ViV, and there's a Morgana ban as well. Interesting enough on Zero Zone, I mean, you mentioned as well a little bit briefly, but we saw our Nation play a lot of Morgana in the dual lane, so maybe they're thinking of maybe a different AP pick that maybe we're not really used to. You know, you got Brand, you got Veigar, you got Orianna and Ziggs as well. So they're all up and available, and maybe they just want to take that away because ViV do have that first pick of the second pick of this draft phase. So maybe just taking it away and making sure they can't use it.
A ton of priority on this jungle now. That's 4 potential picks from ViV against Libunia, where you look at it, Lee Sin, Fiora, Kha'Zix, Jarvan all taken away from the mix. It could be the set jungle that you mentioned. That is a flexible possibility here. But of course, on blue side, Zero Zone are going to have to lock all of their lanes before ViV can actually get theirs. A Vayne ban is a tank shredder. So you've got a set, you've got a Renekton. If you're picking up another tank champion, potentially from the jungle, Vayne would be like one of the only AD carries aside from the likes of Xayah, maybe Kai'Sa, that can actually fulfill that role of burning through tanks.
I think Zero Zone have definitely watched ViV from last week. You know, the Vayne Morgana and Duralane. We're like, yeah, we've seen it before. We've seen the breakdown of Smart Stewart as well. We don't want to be dealing with that for this week. But Kai'Sa, interesting enough for Kranix. So this makes me lean a little bit towards it might be Gragas mid lane, unless they're going for like another AP mid laner instead. Because at the moment they have a lot of AD damage. They have the Olaf, the Kai'Sa, and the Camille already. So you're looking for a source of AP damage. But Kranix is very, very comfortable on Kai'Sa. I actually played against Kranix in solo queue quite a couple of days ago.
Was I in that game? I was in that game with you.
You might have been, actually.
Yeah, it was on your stream when we got blasted. The two of us got blasted by Kranix and some of his other team.
We
anyway,
know what he can do.
So that's the Lulu Graves. We were so busy talking about solo queue that's now a double support pickup with no real hyper carry. Is that like set bottom lane with Thresh, Graves jungle, Lulu mid, or is it like Lulu bot lane AP carry?
I'm really confused. I'm not going to lie to you.
So let's talk about what we do know for now. ViV going more towards disengage. They've got a Gragas, they've got a Janna. Neither of those champions are particularly good at actually getting a fight started. They're great at stopping a fight. Kai'Sa is going to be there to carry. Olaf has late game damage, and Camille can play on the side lane. Zero Zone will figure out what the hell's going on when they get into game. I'll leave that one a little bit more. But they do have quite a tanky setup, especially with the Lulu. Like, it's going to be hard to get damage to stick onto this Zero Zone line.
I mean, the problem with Zero Zone is that they don't really have any AP damage as well, unless it's like AP Lulu, but I don't know. I mean, it could be like Lulu Thresh bot lane with a Lulu farming carry, but then I think that it might be actually Graves on our nation. I'm honestly mind blown. But yeah, I mean, on the side of ViV, we already said, I mean, the Gragas is going to be mid lane. That's going to be their source of AP damage as kind of predicted in the draft, to be fair. Like you said, a lot of disengage because you do have Renekton, you do have Set on the side of Zero Zone. So there's going to be a lot of aggressive plays on the side of Zero Zone. But wow, a very explosive draft. And we talk about the top 8 teams. We talk about, you know, maybe starting to see where the meta's going. But this is not what we've seen at all in the entire tournament.
Not what I'm expecting at all, especially given that Orianna was available, Ziggs was available. Like, there were other carriers available. So this must be something that Zero Zone have worked on. Historically in PC, Lulu's damage has been gutted anytime that it has been anything prominent. So unless there's a build or something that we haven't yet seen too much of, it's not a build in Wild Rift that I'm particularly familiar with at all. Like, Lulu generally for a while, as far as I'm aware, has not played a whole lot of lanes. So we get to find out it is Lulu bot lane for our nation. And now we have to see, is this better than an Orianna or a Ziggs would have played out in this game? If not, then you have to say it's a potential mistake from Zero Zone. If there's something we're missing, then by all means, I'm like, okay, Zero Zone, they've come in prepared for this series. Which sounds results-based, but I mean, like, we're already saying that Lulu probably not that great in this situation.
I mean, this must be something that they practice or something. Yeah. But like I said, the problem with Zero Zone, they have no AP damage at all. There's no source of AP damage. I'm guessing this is going to be a little bit more of an aggressive Lulu build. You might see like maybe Rod of Ages, Death Cap, you know, items like that. But as you said, Lulu doesn't really do a lot of damage. That's kind of the problem. Unless it's going to be like a double support Joe lane, it's just going to be Lulu building Ardent Central or something. But you see the votes from Twitch chat, the channel points are on the line, and it's a little bit even, to be fair, a little bit in the favor of ViV Esports, but it just shows you how close the series can be.
2/3 of the chat behind Viv. I think the thing for me is one thing that obviously will play into it is like Renekton dives in, gets a Lulu ultimate, doesn't die, right? He uses his ultimate, Lulu ultimate, massive like shielding and health. So I can see how Zero Zone will survive. I just want to see where the damage is going to come from later on in the game. And I think without damage, you're up against an Olaf, a Gragas, a Camille, all with the Janna shield and heal to come through it. So I do wonder, as you said, where that damage is going to come from. The later this game goes, but it's an interesting one. We said it's going to be kind of the next level of macro play and the way that our teams are going to be. Well, we've got something new in the mix already in game number 1 of the series, and Saphira's going to jump in, use that stun, and just get back out. That's one of the just laning basics of Renekton, just utilizing all of your kit, getting the trade, getting back out before anybody can trade back onto you.
Yeah, it's the same thing about Renekton. He can jump in, he can easily a little bit of a trade-off, especially against a Gragas as well, and then he can easily just jump back out to safety as well. We haven't spoken a lot about this Baron lane as well. We're going to have Set against Camille. We didn't see Set at all in our first series, picked or banned, but Zero Zone having a little bit more high priority on Set. It's going to be solo lane Set as well. And I mean, even the Graves jungle as well. We've not seen Graves jungle for a long time. He was quite a strong pick. I believe it was just before Horizon Cup, just before he received the nerfs to his kit. But I mean, maybe this is kind of their plan, like Lulu buffing the Graves in a way, and like
maybe
him get. And look, the Lulu's going for Ardent Sensor first item. So I feel like all Viv need to do is just build armor. If they build armor, they can easily just win out, especially in the late game as well. They have the hyper carry of Kai'Sa. They've got the Olaf that could be a carry as well. They have the lockdown as well with Camille. And honestly, I feel like this. I mean, I could be my words here, but I feel like this is a really big mistake by Zero Zone.
And I feel like you can see already the pressure in bottom lane. Like half of the tower health has gone down. Like Lulu Thresh don't have the so they can contest in the lane, but against a carry and a Janna, it's very difficult to actually step up when you're getting pushed under. You mentioned armor. I think one area perhaps for Viv that is tricky is like armor's going to come as second, third, or fourth items to come through, right? It's like you have Olaf, you have Camille, like they're not necessarily armor builders immediately. The same with Gragas, is he wants some of that AP damage. So you're totally right. When they can get the armor to come through, I'm expecting to see plated steel caps all the way down the line.
Oh yeah.
And just like only build armor boots if you can. But yeah, it might take a little while. It might be a window for Zero Zone to have impact on the game when their ultimates are up, to get the base stats of the likes of Renekton and Set to stick in the early game before the armor is built. Oh. And here comes the Camille ultimate. It's going to keep one in place. It's going to keep Set there. And that's exactly why these bruisers are strong in the early game. Just shred down the enemy and get that first kill. Now they've forced Zero Zone away from the Rift Herald. Should be first objectives being taken. Camille's going to go in though. Don't know necessarily about continuing this fight. Hook shot gets her out. That's the annoyance of Camille that always come through. So Viv should be able to secure this Rift Herald.
Yeah, they're not around the Drake as well. They're actually going to go in for a fight.
Yeah, Zero Zone are actually going to go in with that hook. Doesn't quite put Thresh in the position to get the kill, but here's that first kill coming through from Graves, and maybe this is this moment. The ultimates were available exactly before the armor has been built, but Explosive Cask is going to disengage for a moment. They were trying to maybe reassert themselves. That was massive damage coming from Patterson on this Set, and they've denied the Rift Herald play, so the strength of these bruisers early game on full force here.
Really, really well played by Zero Zone. I was actually really surprised that they went in for the fight in the end, but I guess you can see the combo that they're looking for. They're looking for the Lulu ultimate onto the Graves, and the Graves was able to flash in as well. You can see on the back line, so Kranix was in a little bit of trouble. He has the exhaust available, so he was completely fine. But yeah, the Graves Lulu ultimate was really good. The Explosive Cast was also really good. But you can see Patterson tried the E-Flash, but unfortunately missed it, but had the stack of the Grit, so his Haymaker could deal a lot of true damage. Wasn't able to get kills in the end, but yeah, as you mentioned, they stopped the Rift Herald, which is kind of what they wanted to do. And now it's a little bit of a stalemate. Now we get to see, it will be just the handshake in the end. It will just be Rift Herald for Dragon. And it looks like, I really like what Viv are doing here though, because they know that the Rift Herald's probably going to be taken. They are going to try and rotate. No, they're going to go back to mid lane. I thought that maybe they could have predicted that Zero Zone were going to try and look up to the Baron lane, because most of the time what happens is when that first Rift Herald gets taken, you try and take the first tower of the game pretty much straight away. So Viv was maybe looking to try and rotate up into the Baron lane just in case to kind of defend it. But in the end, they're just going to take Rift Herald and back off, and they might even lose the bot. No, they're not going to lose the bot. Lose the bot lane tower in the end, because Thresh is there as well.
at least lose a little bit of position in the jungle. And I think this is one thing that Zero Zone have to be careful of, is they have very little wave clear without a proper carry. Top lane, Shugs is in a little trouble, but it's bot lane where the engage is coming through as Zero Zone are trying to fight back ViV. And they do land the hook. I don't know whether it'll be much more of a follow-up because ViV have 4 people there. But yeah, very difficult for this lineup to clear the wave. Only the Lulu Q and, ability 1 and the Graves ability 1, and neither are that reliable at clearing a full wave.
Yeah, they do. I think both teams struggle a little bit with wave clear. To be fair, we've seen so many champions, like Lulu, like Lulu, like things like Orianna that has that really huge mid lane pressure, but we don't really have that this game. We have a Lulu and a Kai'Sa trying to clear mid lane wave, which is not really the 2 best champions. I mean, once Kranix gets his Q evolve, which he does, he can walk up and just do that and just use his Q to evolve as well. But I guess at the same time, Lulu can also use his her first ability as well and try and clear the wave. But
Shugs, his flash is not quite available to begin this out. Buys time with the stasis is just enough to be able to flash away next to Tyra as then body slam over the wall. Good escape, and that was just the matter of seconds. Another second or 2 if they'd have gone earlier. Shugs would have been trapped without his flash, but was able to buy enough time with that early stasis and get himself away.
Both teams are trying to, create pressure. They're trying to make plays around the map. But I feel like the defensive work and the reaction of both teams have been really, really good, to be fair. You saw, Zero Zone reacting to ViV taking the first Wrist Herald. Then you saw Zero Zone down in the dual lane being able to rotate. And look at the Thresh rotations again. This game is very, very slow so far, but it's very well thought out as well, because you can see that, the hook shot actually misses.
Yeah, didn't hit the ledge and therefore couldn't get the follow-up, but they deal enough damage to Fran to at least force him back. Tries to throw out the hook, but this is all about buying presence to get that push in the bottom lane and get that tower down. It's already just around about 1 plate, but the wave is not quite in time, and Zero Zone actually get to the tower, and that's going to mean that ViV back away.
As I said, it's a slow game, but it's a very well thought out macro game at the moment, because you can see that both teams are rotating around the map trying to make plays, but at the same time, the defensive rotations are there as well. So it's just a kind of a game of chicken really at the moment. It's like, are you going to make a play? No, we're going to make a play. We're going to defend. You're going to defend. But it's going to be that Rift Herald going down. I think this will eventually be a first tower of the game, but in the meantime, in the bot side of the map as well, it will be another tower going over to ViV. So just trading back and forward at the moment in objectives, but the mid lane.
Kranix and Flower may be caught here as Janna will use that Monsoon to disengage. Flash Flay comes through. That's enough to pick it up with the Glitter Lance from Lulu. Bot lane tower did fall in exchange for ViV though, so that Rift Herald buys Zero Zone first tower blood. ViV get the dragon earlier on in the game. Now they're looking to set up for the next one, but they're actually looking for mid lane. 5 members strong here, and remember, there's no carry. That is a beautiful explosive cast. He's going to immediately put Thresh in danger under the tower. Second kill does come through as Kai'Sa picks it up onto Renekton, and here comes the damage from ViV and the lack of damage from Zero Zone, as they cannot really match it this early on in the game. Even so, ViV really starting to put the pressure up in these team fights.
That explosive cast was absolutely huge, knocking the members of Zero Zone into the Esports. And even though it was a 4 versus 5 situation, they were able to do it. They knocked Lulu and Thresh into the team. And even though Lulu had the wild growth, but yeah, like you said, you could kind of see the struggle that Zero Zone have. They don't really have any real damage, to be fair to you. Maybe the true damage from the Haymaker from Patterson, or maybe Sephiro trying to jump in, or the Gray's auto attacks. But when it comes to them team fights, and when it comes to overall, you can see the plated steel caps is being built kind of across the board. Interesting enough, Kranix has gone for the Mercury treads instead of the plated steel caps. Yeah. So it's very interesting. Maybe it's just a little bit of crowd control. I mean, there's a little bit of crowd control on the side of Zero Zone, but not too much, to be fair. I think definitely plated steel caps would have been of better value this game. But maybe he feels like that he has enough, shields and healing to be able to keep himself alive from the auto attacks.
Exactly. I was gonna say, I think the thought process there, right, is just as long as they don't get Renekton W'd that lasts forever, or set pulled in, I don't mind it so much, but nevertheless, we'll see how Kranix actually plays it out in the rest of this game. Yeah, the damage is just not sticking for the side of Zero Zone, and even though they get the hook, they get the engage here. Again, disengage comes through, and with a low damage and low range composition like this, it's going to be hard for Zero Zone to actually pick their fights. Now in comes Milibai. That's a beautiful body slam, and it is going to slam the door potentially on this entire game for ViV as they are pushing through the middle lane. This Gragas performance by Sharks has been the best Gragas we've seen here in Europe already this season.
Oh my god, Sharks again. He landed the explosive cast before in mid lane, and now it was the body slam flash. 3 members just stuck underneath the tower, and you had to follow up with the tornado, with the Olaf jumping in as well as the Kaiser. We're going to see it again here. Just watch Sharks. Watch this Gragas. You can see he set it up, uses his W, body slam, boom, flash. 3 members just completely stuck in place. And Patterson was trying to survive with all of the armor and not all the armor, all the shields and everything. But in the end, wow, that was pretty explosive stress. It was, pretty explosive indeed.
Give the assist to Flower there. Like that tornado couldn't have been better positioned, where because it was cutting in diagonally like past the tower, it forced everybody into that tiny gap between the tower and the wall, and it's like you either get engaged upon or you get knocked up by the tornado. So like beautiful teamwork and coordination from ViV, and this is exactly what Xcandal said in his points to begin, is like ViV's ability to make macro plays and like set up team fights is really, really strong. And this is why, even though they're not the big names that we were expecting out of Game Lord, this is why they're exciting, and they're going again as Kranix is going to flash forward, pick up 1 kill in the bottom lane, and ViV are just trying to ramp this game up quicker and quicker. If they can get Patterson, this should be another kill, should be easily done.
Yep, should he take another kill here, and Kranix is on a rampage, and that's not something you want to see on the side of Zero Zone. You don't want to see a Kaiser already getting ahead when it's not even 13 minutes into the game. And look at this, Millip's just jumping in as well. Our Nation, you're stuck, buddy. This Lulu dual lane carry is not working wonders for you.
No, it is not. Our Nation's finding out what it feels like to play support in a competitive game at this point. Double kill comes through. It's going to be a triple kill coming out as Kranix doesn't have tower aggro for the last one as Janna picks up the kill. I like what Zero Zone were trying to do. I like they were bringing something different, but it has not worked in this game. Like ViV are tearing them apart in the team fights now. I don't see a way back for Zero Zone without a primary carry.
No, I don't see it at all. They got no late game carry at all, really. And you can see again just kind of the struggles of Lulu as well, especially when you have a Camille on the other side and no one really to protect you. You have your own wild growth, but unfortunately that's not going to give you enough health. And then after this, you can see the kind of like what we mentioned in draft, the disengage, the shielding and healing and everything that Kranix and Floor can bring in the duo lane. And now you got to see, you got to really look back at the draft, really kind of have a think about what Zero Zone were kind of thinking really in this draft with this Lulu pick, to be honest. I mean, like you said, it's something different. It's always nice to see something different, but I think there's a difference between trying something different and just something completely wild.
So I think there's a world where, like, if, for instance, Renekton or Set start this game with 2 or 3 kills, they become unkillable, and then all of this support around them basically allows them to stay alive and win team fights. And I think that there's a world where that happens, but also if you see a composition that is so obviously built around melee range carries like this, you're like, oh, we have a ton of disengage, and you'll never kill us. So there'll never be an opportunity for Renekton to be fed or Set to be fed. So I think ViV played really well with that last pick, Janna. I think it completely screwed this composition from Zero Zone up. I know that sounds kind of like reactionary, but that's the thing about last pick on red side is you can pinpoint weaknesses in the enemy composition and say, well, if they just never fight us, they'll never get ahead.
Yeah, we spoke about a little bit in the pre-show about support priority and everything. We saw the early pick from the Thresher. We saw even a last pick on support as well on red side, which we don't really see too much, but it shows how important support picks can be as well. We haven't really seen Janna too much, but like you said, they realized that you got Set jumping in, Graves jumping in, Renekton jumping in. As long as you have that tornado, the knockups, as long as you have the ultimate to knock Zero Zone away from your team, then there's not really anything else that we can do. They've got no second engage source, really. If they suplex with the Set, and then after that, what have they really got to engage? They got no real engage at all, where on the side of ViV, they got the best of both worlds.
Camille's going to come over the wall from Millip, and they're going to lock one down. They've got Renekton, and there is damage here, but it is not enough to get even 1 kill yet on the side of Zero Zone, as ViV are starting to really eat through the health bars. Sharks is going to go over the wall, doesn't quite land the crowd control that he was looking for, and 1 kill does go over to Zero Zone, but it's not really going to be enough to turn it. What it will do, though, is deter ViV from taking the Baron, and then that does slow the game for a moment, but it's 12,000 gold in the lead for ViV, and they have basically taken every objective they've wanted this game.
Yeah, a little bit of an overextension. I feel like they were just trying to make the plays necessary. You know, Sharks and Miller right on the back line. Kranix actually made a really aggressive and really scary ultimate with the Killer Instinct onto the back line, but he had the shielding available, he had the healing and everything available as well. And Patterson, in the end, being able to suplex nothing because Gragas died in the end, which is kind of a cool interaction, as if the champion dies mid-air because he's set is like, you know, doing some I don't know, some wrestling moves, I guess, in the end, just trying to, you know, practice his own wrestling moves. But yeah, as you said already, you know, full control for ViV Esports anyway. 3 dragons to 0. The Elder Dragon is going to be Elder Infernal as well. So if you thought this Kai'Sa was doing a lot of damage, you wait until this Kai'Sa gets Elder Infernal. My God, I don't see a way of them killing Kranix at all this game.
Yeah, and we've started to see a little bit of the defensive items come through. We've got Death's Dance on both Camille and Olaf, going to give them a little bit more survivability. There's the Bramble Vest here as well. They're going to basically survive through the upfront damage from Zero Zone. And Viv baiting Zero Zone forward into the honey trap. Now, the thing about this is Gragas is not here. So if they do engage ahead of time, this is actually an advantageous fight for Zero Zone until Gragas regroups. And I think this is a way that Zero Zone got a little bit of extra map control that they shouldn't have been able to get in that moment.
They didn't get any vision or anything down, though, to be fair. Normally, most of the time, when you have that advantage or when you have that kind of small opportunity to push up the map, you need to try and put some vision down or something. You can see they don't have a ward on Dragon. They don't have a ward on Baron at all. So Viv can even say, okay, you come to us, you come towards Baron, and kind of play that. I guess you can say they're kind of playing a game of, you know, Camille could go in the bot side of the map, try and split push, and then if multiple members go down to Camille, then you can say, okay, we'll just take the Dragon Baron for it. Yeah,
it feels like Zero Zone is stuck moving as one 5-person unit because they don't really have the damage in anything other than a 5-person unit. So I feel like that's the strength of disengage, is like there really is no opportunity for Zero Zone to engage on Gragas and Janna without a significant mistake being made by Viv. So Zero Zone just have to wait for Viv to make a mistake around these objectives. And to be fair, they kind of made one on the Baron play. Like they overextended into a fight that really should have closed the game for Viv. If you look at things like on a very like theoretical level, you think, okay, you get the one kill, you take the Baron. Now they're going to go aggressive. Miller's going to do it again. I don't know whether this is necessary 20 seconds before Elder. I think it's just about assuming control from here.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised that they're not going towards Baron before the Elder Drake comes up. I guess they don't really want to risk anything. I feel like this is definitely a big thing in this game.
Does Millip have teleport? I think one of the only ways that this game turns is if Zero Zone try and rush down at least a fight around Elder, but you can see Millip already back down. So he just cleared a small little wave on the top side. So it is now going to be able to cut into mid lane.
Yeah, so the problem here with Zero Zone is that they have no lockdown or anything at all. Like they have no way, and they can't really contest this. But yeah, like you said already, Camille's in the top side. Interesting enough, they started the Elder, but yeah, I have a feeling that just Viv just don't want to take any risks, which is like is kind of a, I guess you can say is, I mean, I think they still have the better late game scaling, I have to admit. So even if they're not going to take any risks, I still don't think there is a way for Zero Zone to come back. But they're not taking any risks. They're not really, doing much really this game.
For me, Olaf solo doesn't do this Elder Drake fast enough to actually threaten it. So the thing is, now they have to bring the rest of the team over, and this is what they could have been doing about a minute ago as it was spawning. Is like you have to pressure around with like the 4-man and try and get something. As soon as Janna and Kai'Sa show on the side lane, this is a mistake from Viv because they're leaving Olaf and Gragas what is basically this? To 2 versus 4. This is not how you play this out from this situation. What you do is you disengage Elder Dragon and take mid inhibitor, and that's exactly what they're doing now. I'm glad to see they disengage. They stuck around for a little bit too long for my liking.
And now they're going to collapse, actually. I think they're actually going to collapse onto 4 members of Zero Zone, and they might look to fight.
This actually works out really well for Viv now, as they managed to catch Zero Zone in their own jungle. It was riskier perhaps than it should have been at first, but they're going to get 2 inhibitors from it and then peel back from the Elder. Very careful by Viv, but actually ends up working out in their favor.
This is a really strange game. I must admit, this is a really strange game for
Grace is
both
going to try and
teams.
steal if he can get the nearly on the timing, but that's going to be the end of this game as Elder Infernal is going to pop the members of Zero Zone and ViV 17 kills to 3. It feels like they have 5 carries when Zero Zone have none. As ViV, they saw what Zero Zone were offering and they said, we're just going to walk through this bottom lane, walk through the game, and close it out with a 20,000 gold lead. ViV going to take game number 1 against Zero Zone, and this is a very different series from the draft than we were expecting.
I think this is a very controlled game by ViV Esports in the end. I think they just didn't want to take any risks. They were very controlled. They were kind of toying, I guess, with Zero Zone here. And they were like, okay, we're going to take Elder. No, we're actually going to take your base. No, we're going to go back to Elder again. And they were just going back and forth and back and forth. But I think they just, like I said, they didn't want to take any risks. I feel like that was kind of the thing with both teams going into this first game. And I think we'll be able to see in the early game as well with the highlights as well. It was kind of just a back and forth early game where both teams were like, okay, we're trying to make plays, but we also don't want to overextend and take any risk because we know that if we get behind in the early game, then it's going to be really hard to come back.
Yeah, I mean, this first fight, I think we started to see what Zero Zone were trying to do, like just the pure base stats, but this fight basically destroyed the game when it came to like what Zero Zone were trying to do. Like that Gragas ultimate, like Shag's Gragas performance was insane in 2 key fights, fighting multiple people with the exact type of crowd control they wanted. This is beautiful. This is exactly what you want to see. And from here, there really was no way of Zero Zone playing this game out.
No, I think the 2 fights there in the mid lane, both Shag's MVP for sure for this game. Yeah. Both the explosive cast and the body slam as well. And from there, I think Zero Zone kind of just struggled a little bit. I feel like with this comp, you need an early game lead. You need to kind of get that advantage with the Lulu, with your bruisers in the top side of the map as well. And if you don't get an early game gold lead, then there's no way of really winning these fights. You got Kranich scaling, you got Flower, which was able to disengage as well, and then you just have multiple ways to engage as well onto Zero Zone. You can see in these fights as well, there's not really a lot of damage at all really for the side of Zero Zone.
No, exactly. This is the fight that followed the attempt at the Elder Drake, and the Elder Drake was what scared me because they had put so much damage down on it, and basically if it's under half health and the enemy team can contest with greater numbers, like that's the danger zone. That's when you have to be careful of the enemy team just going, okay, thanks for setting it up for us, we'll take it. But nevertheless, Zero Zone really struggling to get any kind of play on this game. You can see the double support composition just didn't work in the way that they were expecting it to. Maybe there was something there on paper with the bruisers being buffed up, but it definitely did not make it work in this game. Like you can see how the difference in damage in general and just the presence on the game is exactly the difference between the 2 teams. I mean, when your bot lane carry role has literally the gold of the support that you'd expect, that's always a real tough situation.
Yeah, it's I'm really interested to see what Zero Zone kind of thought process was in the draft, to be fair. Were they just picking Lulu just to, just stop ViV from picking it, or was it just a pick that they had planned or something? I'm not really too sure. I mean, maybe it could have been a mistake as well. Maybe they just picked the wrong champion. I mean, we don't know about these things, but yeah, in the end, I feel like this game definitely could have ended a lot sooner than what it did. Yeah. But I think ViV Esports just well thought out on the end of just taking control really of the map and just making sure that they don't make any mistakes.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Orianna or any other mage in that bottom lane role that we've seen and were available. Let's take a look at the play of the game. I think it's probably going to be something around Shags. Oh yeah, because that Gragas performance is gonna stick in my mind for a while.
Yeah, I believe I hope it's going to be this mid lane play. But yeah, I think what you said as well, which I didn't really catch out at first, was the Janna tornado as well, which actually knocked up 2 members and kind of, like you said, zoned the members of Zero Zone as well. So it meant they had to group together. And then after that, Shags flash body slam in. I think from that point and a little bit before that as well, the point where they got that mid lane fight and they won 4 versus 5, that was when ViV were able to accelerate their gold leads.
Oh yes, the rare aggressive Janna play. It's what you love to see in game. We are going to step away for just a couple of minutes. We're going to be back with game number 2 between Zero Zone and ViV Esports. This was a great game 1, hoping for something similar in game 2, maybe just a little bit closer. Maybe we'll get a little bit better of a draft. We'll be back in 3.5 minutes.
I knew it would end this
Welcome back, everybody, to week 3 of the Wild Rift EMEA Championships. And after a very strange game 1 between Zero Zone and ViV, we're hoping for perhaps a little bit more of a standard draft from Zero Zone in game 2. I'm Stress, joined by Stuart. I think we've had a little bit of time to think about that, Lulu. Neither of us are fans of it.
Yeah, we spoke a little bit during the break, and we're still trying to wrap our heads around kind of the strategy and what everything was. But I think there's one thing that we're going to know from the second draft is that that's not going to happen again. Yeah. I don't think they're going to go for that same strategy again. I mean, we've seen our nation play these AP carries. We've seen Morgana, which they banned away themselves. We've seen him play Oriana, which was open. Ziggs was open as well. So it just seems really, really strange. Obviously, they had a plan behind it, but unfortunately, they weren't able to execute it.
Yeah, they weren't. I think we'll see a different draft, or it might be a more standard mage in that bottom lane, like the likes of an Oriana or a Ziggs. I know we've said it a lot, but there's a reason they're meta right now. We heard Mozilla talk about it earlier in the day. Bruisers with these AP bot lanes, very difficult to beat in the meta, and certainly not having a carry makes it difficult. We're not the only ones that have opinions on Lulu and the way that draft and that game played out. Xcandrel was keeping an eye on game number 1 and has some key points to head into game 2 between Zero Zone and ViV.
Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, and I think you correctly talked about one of the most important things, which was the Zero Zone draft. It was not ideal. I think realistically, when you've got a key player like our nation, you don't want to be putting him on a low damage supportive carry. I think the guys talked about that on the desk quite well. Also, I want to just put a little bit of light onto that draft. I think the Lulu pick was there to accelerate the bruisers in the mid game. I think they were hoping to have Ardent Sensor finished by first Dragon or first Rift Herald, and then just use the power of Set and Renekton in the mid game to try and just push themselves to victory by snowballing. Snowballing is a really great way to win games in Wild Rift. It just didn't work out, and that was because ViV's macro is just so good. ViV are really good around playing around the map. They were coordinated as a team. They played super well around the objectives, and I think I was really impressed with how they played that game out from a very kind of top-level standpoint. So I think that, Zero Zone needs to go back to the drawing board. They're not going to win this game through pure objective control because ViV are just too good at that. And I want to point out the MVP contender for me right now is Sharks. Absolutely insane engages on the Gragas, both with his body slam and flash combinations and also his explosive cast. He really set up and allowed ViV to accelerate the game, and that was the most important thing. Shark was the catalyst for ViV being able to push that gold lead to ridiculous heights by a very short time frame. So really, really impressed with ViV all round. We'll see what they can do in the second game when we hand it back over to Stress and Stuart.
Absolute MVP contender. Like Sharks' Gragas for me is like perhaps one of the most standout performances just from any player so far. Like we've had 3 weeks of games now, and I'm like, there's been a couple of players where I'm like, okay, Kamalto yesterday. We saw a few in week 1 and 2 with players like from Andres from the jungle, but that game is like, okay, Sharks has said, okay, just follow me into fights and we're going to win every single time. Really strong performance from a lane that only recently has started playing Gragas. It's not that frequent that we've seen it before the spring of this year.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting one. I feel like Gragas has not been a kind of a priority really, especially in the mid lane, but even though his buffs don't really kind of buff him too well in the mid lane, kind of teams have been like, okay, we're going to try Gragas again, even though he got like a recent AD buff, and they're realizing now that, oh, you can actually play AP Gragas as an AP damage source in the mid lane. It's working out, and I think Sharks has definitely been one of them, key, I guess, carries for the team as well, especially in the previous game, and one of the standout performances over the last few weeks.
Would not surprise me to see a Gragas ban come through because it was the first rotation, and I wonder whether it would be a blue side first pick for ViV, because I actually think it was that strong in the game that it was very much worth it. Nevertheless, we are heading towards picks and bans for our second game of the series. We saw some presence on the likes of Jace and Set and that kind of thing, but it is ViV now on the blue side, Zero Zone on the red side, so we do have to take account of those swaps. Maybe this is the opportunity where Zero Zone would have that flexibility to, if they do want to pick Lulu, put it in a different lane when they see the total composition.
Yeah, interestingly, the sides of swaps as Zero Zone on the losing side decided to go on the red side for this game. But like you said, it allows for that Gragas maybe to be first pick, which the Gragas as well can be flexed to other lanes. You know, we've seen Baron lane Gragas, we've seen jungle Gragas, also support Gragas as well. So I feel like it's definitely a really, really big high priority for these two teams. And Set is still going through the draft at the moment, but standard red side bans that we've seen at the moment is Fiora, is Jace, and is also Set. So I wouldn't be surprised if this final ban is Set. No, it's going to be Camille instead. And I feel like that is a pretty good ban, to be fair, because I feel like the lockdown of Camille, what she can offer for a team is a lot. But there you go, Set's open again, and that will be the first pick for ViV Esports.
I feel like we may even see the same as last time, where Gragas is picked in this rotation now for Zero Zone. Varus finds his way through the draft this time, and we're going from no carry in the bottom lane to the best AD carry in the bottom lane for Varus. Like, still very, very strong in the meta. There's the Olaf as well. This opens up quite a few compositions now. Lulu Varus is very strong in the lane. Olaf very strong with Lulu later on in the game. I'm going to mention that at some point someone's going to realize how strong Olaf Yuumi is. Yuumi is available for people, but we haven't seen Yuumi have any priority here in Europe so far.
Yeah, we've seen it over in SEA. I'm not too sure if everyone's seen the clips of Garen, Yuumi, and everything as well, but we have seen it. So it is a possibility. It's open, like you said. But now it kind of leaves Zero Zone in a bit of a situation where they need a mid lane AP carry. Well, they don't really need it. They can go for like full AD like they did in the previous game. They can go for that situation. I'm not saying it's definitely needed, but you're going to be, you know, in a lot of AD situations. Of wow, that's a. And speaking of AD damage, it's a lot of
heavy AD, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of heavy AD damage for a ViV Esports. So I feel like going into going into the second one, I mean, it's just all AD. Look at this, it's just all AD. And now I feel like both teams are just going to ban out AP mages, because both teams want to play AP mages. Both teams want to do it, and like, I know what you're going to say, Stress. Actually, I know what you're going to say.
You've got Olaf and Garen. Yuumi is so strong, in my opinion. Anyway, so we're going to see mages banned out. We've got Corki gone. Morgana's going to go. I'm going to tongue-in-cheek say Lulu doesn't need to be banned. Ariana is going to be available. We got the likes of Brand that we haven't seen in a few weeks. But a lot of AP carries in the bottom lane that are available, because everybody in this game will stack armor at some point, looking at the 6 champions that we have picked already. They actually banned the Lulu. It's because of the Olaf. It's because of the Olaf. Like, Olaf Lulu is really strong.
I mean, yeah, you can still play, you know, Lulu as a support. I don't think. I mean, we both laughed because we saw it as a carry in the previous game. But I don't think it would be played in a carry role if it got picked again. But yeah, Garen, I think, is a really, really nice third pick for the side of Zero Zone, because, you know, you go for these kind of Black Cleaver Sterics, but after that you can go for a lot of tank, and Black Cleaver and Sterics are quite cheap items. You can get them quite quickly. But after that you can build like a Bramble Vest, Dead Man's Plate, and everything as well. And it's going to be really hard for ViV to kind of go through this Garen. But interesting enough, ViV didn't ban out any AP mages, I guess because they want an AP mage for themselves. But Gragas is actually one that went through the entire first banning phase and first picking phase.
It can flex now, like both Gragas and Garen can flex between top and mid, and Gragas can flex between top, mid, and support. So there's a lot of options available depending on what they see from this ViV lineup now.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Garen at mid lane a little bit against the Zed, because it's really hard for Zed to even go in. And wow, that is a Vayne for Kranix. We saw it in week 1. We saw him pick up Vayne before. Now, what's this going to be paired with? You got Janna still available, which Flower played in the previous game. You got Nami maybe as well, which can be pretty decent. But all these, you know, enchanters that do a lot of crowd control. You can't do anything against an Olaf, but it could also be set support, yeah. And it is going to be set support. There you go, right call, Stress.
Yeah, it's got to be here for something sometimes. But yeah, no, I mean, this is them saying basically, like, we don't need more AP if we can just go with Silver Bolt's damage for that third proc and shred through tanks. Now we just need to bring some more crowd control. Like, there's not a massive amount of, I mean, there's situational crowd control from the side of Zero Zone with the likes of Varus, with the likes of Gragas if it hits. Janna is going to disengage. Doesn't lock down the Vayne in any way, and I feel like that might be the trickiest part of this game from Zero Zone, is you've got 3 very mobile carries on the side of ViV, like Zed, Akali, and Vayne can tear through a backline. Yeah. However, there's a strong front line in the side of Zero Zone with like Olaf, Garen, and Gragas in those positions, so kind of a very different game to game 1.
Yeah, the true damage from Kranix on this Vayne is going to be really, really insane. You know, Garen, Olaf tank, Gragas it looks like it might be mid lane Gragas. It could also still be Baron lane tank Gragas as well. I don't think that's the right call for Zero Zone here, because if you have a third tank as well, that just means Vayne could just shred through your entire front line as well. But interesting enough, I think this is going to be Akali maybe in the Baron lane. It could also be mid lane Akali Zed Baron lane, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And Akali Baron lane is not really something we see a lot, because Akali does struggle against these AD bruisers and these AD tanks in the Baron lane.
I'm sad. As much as I hate Yuumi, I think this was one of the more viable games that we were going to see it in. I mean, Varus making a reappearance in that bottom lane is going to be the complete opposite side of the coin for our nation, where he should have lane presence. Like, Varus against Vayne means Vayne basically says, okay, I'm not going to do anything for 15 minutes of the game. But if we get past 15 minutes of the game, Varus, you're not going to do anything, because you can basically eat through. So very late game focused on the bot side for ViV, and I think that they've played out very comfortably. This composition is very similar to the one that you broke down yesterday in your segment with the Jarvan, with the Vayne, where they were good at securing vision control around mid and then playing around objectives. So for ViV, this is something they're used to doing.
Yeah, it's all going to be about allowing Kranix to just have kind of free reign to be able to auto attack in the backline and kind of zoning out as well. But when you have the likes of an Olaf and a Garen, it is going to be really hard as well at the same time. That even though Vayne is very, very, mobile, can turn invisible and dash around as well and kind of tumble around, and it is going to be Garen in the mid lane. So we've seen this a little bit before. We've seen Fizz as a kind of a counter / skill matchup against the Zed, but we've also seen Garen mid lane as well, which just means that Zed just finds it much, much more difficult to be able to kill the Zeds.
A lot closer on the prediction game. Last game, it was 2/3 thinking that ViV were going to do it. However, this time it's just over 50%. Yeah, I think so. As you said, like, the mobility, I think, is kind of difficult for Zero Zone to deal with. That tankiness as well, I think, other than the Vayne, may very well struggle on the side of ViV to eat through the front line. But we're going to have to watch how it goes. These first fights are going to be the key ones for the Dragon and the Rift Herald, because I think it looked like Zero Zone could have done something around their last game, but ViV ended up just being way too strong in the macro game.
Yeah, most of these lanes, they're not going to have any priority as well, which is kind of a complete flip of first game. They have full priority in all their lanes in the first game, but, in bot lane, they have a losing matchup. Mid lane, they kind of have a losing matchup as well, especially in getting their priority, because Zed can't really do much against Garen in the early game. And in the Baron lane as well, they have a little bit of priority with Akali if she can push in the wave like she is now, but most of the time, Gragas does a fairly decent job into Akali. I feel like this is actually probably one of the better matchups for Akali in the Baron lane. But yeah, there's a lot of trading already happening in the duo lane here. And if you're Kranix in the floor, you don't want to be taking any of these fights in the early game.
No, you're so short range between Vayne and Set that, like, Janna Varus is just going to blast you in lane. Varus, I mean, we've seen so many games since Horizon Cup, and included, where Varus has this insane lane presence, and early fights just are so easy to pick off low health targets. You use that empowered ability one, the piercing arrow, and suddenly everybody loses half of their health. So it's one of those picks that is always going to be prominent until it gets nerfed into the ground, unfortunately.
Yeah, and interesting
saying that
enough
as a Varus
well.
main, unfortunate.
Yeah, that's the. I mean, that's the thing with like Varus is just. He brings so much to a team fight as well, Varus. He has the chains of corruptions and everything as well. But one thing I actually want to quickly mention as well is actually the Gragas in the Baron lane. You can see that Patterson has taken Grasp Beyond Dying, also started Ruby Crystal. So that's going to be another tank for Vayne to shred through. So Vayne has kind of 3 targets that she could just completely shred through. It doesn't matter how much armor that Patterson and Labunya and Saphira is going to build, because Vayne's just going to use the silver bolts and just deal a lot of true damage. So I feel like it would have been better to go like AP Gragas this game and maybe go mid lane Gragas, but maybe that's something that Zero Zone have not practiced. And maybe something that they're not comfortable with. But yeah, going tank Gragas against the Vayne, not really what I would really do in this situation.
Yeah, it feels like almost you need to just like blow her up immediately and secure the kill. I think that's one of the difficult things about playing with Vayne is she's so punishing that if you're against her and you don't immediately kill her in a fight, you basically expect to lose the fight over time. And I think, as you said, just going full tank means it's going to be difficult to kill Kranix in this entire matchup, especially with the protection he's got, like the Jarvan ultimate set as well, can really peel most of the Zero Zone lineup off. Obviously, the only one that can't get really affected by Set's ult is going to be the Olaf once he's popped that Ragnarok.
Yeah, I think Floor's job this game is just going to be to just suplex the front line away, and he's a little bit caught out. The Chain of Corruption there could have been a pretty good use, but I guess he just doesn't want to use it just before the objectives. But you can see this game is kind of completely flipped to the first one. Zero Zone have mid lane priority because Vayne doesn't have any wave clear at all. Yep. They have the side lane pressure as well with both the Garen and the Gragas. So now it's going to be for Zero Zone for the ones to be proactive this game. They're going to be the ones that are going to try and look, and they are going to go straight for this first Rift Herald. And ViV are a little bit slow on this. You know, Tyrus is not really doing too much. They're kind of slow on the Dragon. They can honestly take this Rift Herald and go straight to the Dragon afterwards.
Yeah, I think between Vayne's and Jarvan, they should be able to rush it down. The problem is the mid lane push, just in case there like is an immediate Rift Herald. But that's not what Zero Zone are going for. They're going to go for topside instead. I don't know whether they'll immediately throw it down, but of course, getting that first Rift Herald gives them that opportunity. It's low enough that they don't actually need it. I think they can get this damage down and eat through those two plates and hold the Rift Herald. So this is a good position for Zero Zone to start getting a little bit of gold generation onto their carries. Their early game team fights are really strong. Like Garen, Varus, Gragas all have impact in these fights. I think that's what we have to be careful of. Is Patterson is actually going to get dropped, but Miller almost ends up falling himself as he goes under the tower. Miller managing to pick up that first kill. That's an important one on one of these carries from ViV.
Yeah, a little bit of an overstep by Patterson. They got the first tower. I'm not too sure if he was recalling there or something. I'll have to look back because I was too busy looking at mid lane. But look, Zero Zone are being proactive. This is what I'd like to see from Zero Zone. They know that they have the early
there's a dive
game.
on Varus in the mid lane as well. Like Varus has managed to survive through the Chains of Corruption and the Flash. Rift Herald does go into the bottom lane, but it's Varus picking up that kill. They've turned it back around as between that Janna and the Varus they've been able to do it. But this is danger situation. There's Vayne starting to get the damage out, can't pick up the kill, and backing away from this fight is what they need to do. They cannot afford Kranix getting kills in this early game. They have to get the gold onto Varus and stop ViV from getting gold onto Kranix.
Yeah, it looks like they realized that two members were down the dual lane, so they were trying to make that mid lane play. Like you said, the mid lane tower dive, but it's just completely backfired for ViV as well. And ViV are kind of falling apart a little bit in this early game. You can see the Cataclysm from the Jarvan on top of the damage. Oh my god, that damage!
That's Varus for you. That empowered ability 1 is a significant amount of damage. There's the danger situation for our nation, but rightly plays back in the lane and stays alive.
Yeah, they tried to Cataclysm on top of Flower flashing in as well into the Cataclysm, but it just shows how strong the Chain of Corruptions can be. Just means that they have the lockdown as well. When you have the Tower Aggro on top of that, and when you have the Blighted stacks on Varus's second ability, because he had the Blighted stacks, it means his first ability was just able to do more damage. And honestly, I think that did like 200 or 300 damage. You know, this early on in the game is absolutely disgusting. Interesting enough, Patterson has gone for a more heavy AP route, which I like. I like that he's not going for like this full tank. He's gone for Rod of Ages on top of the full tank as well. But I mean, he went for Grasping on Dinosaur. I was kind of expecting for a full tank, but maybe he realizes that, look, I can't build full tank this game. I'm against the Vayne. I want to try and one-shot the Vayne before she can basically just keep auto-attacking me and dealing a lot of damage.
Yeah, is that just like a laning thing with Grasp where you're like, oh, I just need it to survive through rather than looking for that full damage? We'll figure out exactly how the rest of the build is going, but going for Rabbit and Zepcap as a second item, so we'll try and make people pop with those explosive casks. Has already found the bad side of Millip, though. We'll get the body slam to work through, but Millip is just going to back away after shrouding.
Yep, we're in a bit of a stalemate at the moment. A little bit of a gold lead for Zero Zone, but ViV kind of brought it back a little bit too fair. Just a 2,000 gold lead, but 2 towers to 0. ViV do have the first dragon, and now's the time where the second dragons are going to spawn and when the second Rift Herald is going to spawn. So now, again, you're looking at the side of Zero Zone. What are they going to do now? They have the pressure in the side lanes. They have both top and bot lane tower secured for now. And is ViV Esports at the moment are looking to be a little bit more aggressive, but again, they just have no priority in the lanes. They have no mid lane control. Tyrus, I think, was able to get a ward down, I think. No, he was just using his flag just to make sure that there was no one around. And yeah, I think it's Zero Zone that has to keep on being proactive this game, because if you slow down a little bit in this game, and if you allow Vayne to farm up, then it's going to be really hard to try and come back when it gets to later stages.
Exactly. There's one item though that's completed that I always like when you're playing against Zed very early on. That's a stasis on your primary carry. Like our nation already has it. Sometimes you see carries delay it for a while, but that's an engage coming out from Set. He's 1 versus 5. The rest of the team has not grouped yet from the side of Viv, and he is able to get away for just a moment, not quite enough to stay alive the entire time. And Kranix is trying to get the damage through, flashes over the wall to try and get Labunya, and does get it, but he's going to drop low. Kranix is going to end up falling to our nation, and Zero Zone have picked up enough kills from that. I think Kranix only got the 1. There's 2 kills over to the side of Zero Zone.
Yeah, Flower went a little bit too over-aggressive there, to be honest. He was kind of not on the same page of his team, but he went in with the suplex, being able to just try and group the members together, and then Tyrus was like, oh, we're going in, are we? And then he kind of just followed afterwards as well. But like you said, the rest of the team were not there. Kranix wasn't ready, Shogs wasn't ready, and Millet wasn't ready as well, and it was explosive cast again, which is, I feel like, has been such a crucial ultimate in this series. You can see, if you watch Patterson here, the explosive cast as well, to not both Shogs and Millet into the team, you can see just there, and they tried to engage after that as well, but there's not very much you could do when you're overextended like that. With Flower on the set, for example, you're just going to just die when you're by yourself, and in the end, it does pay a little bit of a bad sign for Viv in the end, but they are back onto the map now. They are going to look to try and work towards this dragon. Interestingly enough, the Rift Herald was not taken, so no objectives, no second objectives have been taken just yet, but now that means that Zero Zone is going to look to go towards this dragon. You can see already that Tyrus is going up towards the Rift Herald to try and trade objectives, but the poke damage already by this Varus is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it's gross. Like, Varus has so much early game damage, and they've actually cut Kranix away from the Rift Herald. So this is going to be a slow take on the side of Viv. That dragon has already pretty much gone down. There it is. I was saying already, expecting it to have gone. But actually, this has died fast enough that Viv are going to get away. That was a couple of seconds quicker than I thought it was going to be. That Vayne does shred through the neutral objectives, and Kranix maybe caught no flash, remember. Still just about a quarter of that cooldown to go. But it's hard to play around mid lane against a Varus. Like, he clears the wave and pushes you back so effectively that it's really difficult to get any kind of map control.
And this is the problem that we kind of spoken about over the past few weeks of the WREC, when you don't have that mid lane priority, when you kind of draft losing lanes, and when you're able to just rotate around the map. You can see the Zero Zone have kind of complete control of the map at the moment, but I feel like Viv are playing a very different game plan this game compared to the previous one. You know, last game they did have the lane priorities, so you can see that in the previous game they were able to kind of be proactive, but I feel like this game they're just playing a little bit more passive. They're trying to make sure that they don't really make any mistakes, because if you fall behind against this Zero Zone lineup, which they have done, but honestly, it's only like a few thousand gold lead, so it's still a reasonable gold lead that you can see that, you know, they can allow Kranix to scale up. Millip as well can maybe one-shot our nation in the late game, so as long as they stay within a close distance, ViV Esports still have a chance in this game.
Exactly. Like, oh, and as we say that, Labunya may very well be caught 1 versus 2, but he's actually going to turn the damage back around. Tyrus is going to get himself out. He's only just bought that Guardian Angel. If that gets popped, that would be a very early cooldown to have been used. And yeah, this is kind of when you build a Vayne composition and you're like, okay, we're probably playing for the late game. You kind of assume that you're going to be down a couple of thousand. Anything more, and you're like, okay, that might be too much. But it's okay to be a little bit down. Now Labunya has been engaged upon again by Tyrus. It's a tower going down to Viv in the top side of the rift, so getting a little bit of that global gold towards the team. Tyrus has to back away. He is quite low. They are going to lose this tower in exchange of it, but Zero Zone will take that in this exchange. However, Flower wants to go aggressive, lands the suplex onto multiple people, but he is alone once again. And Flower, this is kind of characteristic of how this game has gone. In goes Miller, but can't quite find the first kill. Shroud jumps back out, can't get anything more. But Viv, maybe they've done enough. Maybe that was enough to slow Zero Zone even further. No kills means there's no extra gold going over to Zero Zone after that tower.
I mean, the most important thing to note in that little bit of exchange there is they had no Jarvan ultimate, they had no Vayne ultimate as well. Kranix actually used his ultimate as well, but then Flower tried to re-engage as well. I felt like, again, it's just a little bit of an overextension by Flower, because when you don't have a Jarvan Cataclysm, when you don't have Vayne Ultimate, there's no real way that you can actually fight Zero Zone this early on in the game. And then after that as well, I think the Flash Ultimate by Sephiro tried to catch out the set, but unfortunately, I think he like auto-casted it and it went on the Zed instead, unfortunately. So he was trying to do enough to be able to get enough damage down, but unfortunately he kind of went on the wrong target. But Patterson might be caught out.
Patterson, yeah, he's going to stasis. He's going to buy enough time for the rest
team
of the team to
rotations,
join.
though.
Yeah, exactly. Zero Zone are on their way up towards that top side. They're already pushed mid out. It gives them the ability to step up. Kranix,
oh my god!
Yeah, that's Varus for you. I was about to comment that. Well, you know, Varus, I like Cyrilda's Grudge as the second item. I think it's very, very useful, but it does feel like a little bit lower damage sometimes. Yeah, no, not when you half Alpha Vayne off 1Q. It's not that much lower damage. Opting for Edge of Night as a third item just to give himself a little bit more survivability as well. Cyrilda's Varus is really difficult to kind of like play around objectives against. It slows you and deals so much damage that, I don't know, it's really annoying to play on the other side of.
Yeah, the thing with Cyrilda's Grudge is that actually got changed quite recently because now it does scaling armor penetration based on your levels. So the later the game goes, the more damage you're going to be able to do, the more armor penetration you have as well. So sometimes you see like Ghostblade as a second item for Varus's because you don't really want to build Cyrilda's Grudge too early game because it doesn't really give you too much, but it gives you that utility. It gives you them slows, which we've seen already this game. ViV is struggling to deal with, to be honest. I don't really know, you know, how they're really going to get through to this Varus. I think that's why they kind of went for the Akali last pick, because that's really their only way of trying to get onto Varus when you have a Janna as well, which I feel like has been definitely a very interesting pick. We haven't seen a lot of Janna, but again, it's that disengage as well for a very low mobility target. Like our nation, and now they're going to go towards the third dragon of this game, but all the members are grouping around this dragon because the Rift Herald's not up at the moment, and it looks like ViV Esports might just give this away. But look, Tyrus is half health already. Yeah,
they might have to sack this. It might just be a steal, and they would have to lose a GA for it if they go in. Oh, good timing, but not quite there on the steal from Tyrus. I'd love to see Vayne itemization. I think that's basically an idea. Thank you very much, observers, for an idea of how close ViV are to coming back in this game, and that's a significant gold lead for Varus right now. Like, that's bigger than I was anticipating, and that actually makes me more worried for ViV, because I thought, okay, if Vayne's keeping pace, they can fight back into this, but only at 2 items with 2,500 gold down is a significant drop.
And that's kind of the whole goal lead for Zero Zone at the moment is all in that duo lane. And you can see that across the rest of the board, there's like 1,000 goal leads, but nothing really too crazy. But it's all about the bot lane. But look, he went back. He just bought a Solari charge blade. So he had like, what, 3,200 gold in the bank? Yeah, he just bought it like straight away, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. But Tyrus going in again.
Yeah, again, this is a little bit disjointed as ViV are engaging into the top side of the map. This time forces, it's the stasis forced out from Varus. They do pick up the kill even with the stasis and that Edge of Night, and maybe this is it because Millip is trying to go in, doesn't quite get the double kill, but 2 people are low as Labunya does have the GA as well. Not quite enough as Millip is gonna drop, and Labunya does get that respawn from the Guardian Angel. Proccing Tyrus didn't lose his. Kranix, I don't believe, picked up a kill in that exchange, so it's a close fight and maybe closer than it should be, but ViV and Zero Zone both lose 1.
You can see the later the game goes, the harder it's going to be for Varus because you've got Zed jumping onto you, you've got Akali jumping onto you on the backline as well. It's all started off with a little bit of weird exchange, but look at Sharks, look at Millip on the backline. They're both waiting for the stasis to come back up. You can see they're both flashing, they're both dashing on top of Varus, and that's kind of the main target for ViV. As long as Sharks and Millip can jump onto the backline and take down this Varus, that's their win condition. That's their way of trying to win out this game, because their gold lead, like I said, is all on this Varus. If they can take the Varus down, then that's pretty much all the gold lead kind of gone for Zero Zone.
And ViV took that fight, it looked like, because Sephiro had showed on bottom side of the map, and they were like, okay, let's just go for the fight, try and get it. The fight took so long, and Garen can go so quick, that he actually managed to join for the second half of the fight. So unfortunate if you're a ViV fan that they weren't able to get enough pressure to take mid lane tower down. This is like the bashing your head against a brick wall trying to clear a Varus out, and that's really stopping them from taking these fights more often. ViV still are trying to just buy time. Like, I actually think if we were to be able to hear ViV's comms, they're probably saying like let's just take it slow. Like, we're scaling. We genuinely have the late game in this matchup, and it's 18 minutes into the game, only being 1 kill and a couple of towers down is not the worst position for them. And I actually think this is starting, as you said, to be more reliant on Zero Zone to find engages now, because otherwise Kranix is going to get to 3, 4, 5 items. He's already at 3. And that's the point where Vayne is terrifyingly scary in a composition like this.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to allow Millip and Sharks to scale up as well, and allow them to easily get onto the back line as well for our nation and Fran. But they do have 2 dragons though, Zero Zone. They're going to be looking towards it. It's going to be the Elder next, going to be another Elder Infernal. Oh my!
For Varus,
if any of
helpful.
if any of these 2 teams get Elder Infernal, then it's going to be another scary situation. You see, Kranix is looking to try and clear out this mid wave. Like you said, 3 items now for Kranix. He does have stasis as well, so even if they try and look for an engage onto Kranix, they are going to be able. He is going to be able to use the stasis. You can see Zed as well has 3 items. Millip also has 3 items. Has a little haunting guys and has a Sheen available as well. So we're getting to the point of the game now. It's 19 minutes into this game. I feel like it's definitely come thick and fast. This game, it's definitely been a really a quick game, to be fair, and 19 minutes has come really quick and fast. And this is kind of where ViV, I feel like, have the advantage. Even though they have the gold deficit, they have the advantage. They have the Vayne, they have the Zed, they have the Akali that's going to be able to scale up.
The amount of gold deficit is a lot less than it even was a couple of minutes ago. So they've really started to eat through it. And I think Zero Zone are really afraid now of overstepping, because unless they throw everything at Kranix and just like basically use every objective, at that point, like Sharks and Millip can clean up. We've seen like this Akali diving into the backline and taking off so much of the health bars that this isn't just a single threat from ViV and the side of Kranix. We've been talking about it a lot, like Vayne will save them, but that's just the late game insurance policy. Like the other carries here for Millip and Sharks can do a lot of work. And I think one of the difficulties is like Zero Zone have not been able to close the gap when they've needed to.
Yeah, they haven't. Well, Zero Zone haven't been able to accelerate as well. I think this this gold lead that they kind of needed to do this game, they really needed to kind of keep on being proactive. I guess they've taken the towers, they've taken team fights as well, but now they're in a bit of a situation where probably Zero Zone, if you speak about, I guess, their situation in this game, is that they're gonna look now to try and get priority towards the dragon. They might try and start this off. They are gonna start, They see Zed up in the top lane. Yep, they see Zed top side. He's gonna go back to base, but I don't think they can do this very quickly. Varus is not the quickest, but they're jumping in onto Kranix.
Yeah, stasis has already been used. If they can convert this into a kill, it should be enough, and they actually do get it. Kranix has fallen, and now Floor in the backline is trying to soak up as much as they can. Enough time for Millip and Sharks to get there, but this is exactly what Zero Zone needed. This was the type of team fight, and this is how you bait around the Elder Drake. You start it, you get the damage down, you take out the carry. The problem they have to deal with now is the fact that Sharks and Millip are going to try and peel them away from this objective and just open up a gap for Tyrus to try and steal, but that was exactly what Zero Zone were looking for.
Yeah, misposition, but I feel like it's desperation now for ViV Esports. You can see Tyrus is trying so hard to try and get into this pit, but yeah, they're just zoning out Tyrus. They're doing really well. They can see 2 members, you have the tornado and everything, and it's an easy take for the Elder Dragon. And even though they're going to look like to try and pick off Patterson, they're not even going to kill Patterson as well. And I feel like they're just all going to die.
ViV were trying to peel them away from the objective, but have ended up overstaying. A couple of towers did go down in favor of ViV, but that was really well played by Zero Zone. Like, as soon as Patterson had that opening onto Kranix, suddenly ViV had no real insurance policy in that vein. And from there, hard for ViV to stabilize. Really important fight for Zero Zone to try and steal back their lead on this game that they had. The gold lead is not theirs, but with Elder Infernal plus the Baron that should go over to them, that should be enough to be able to at least start cracking the base. Floor's going to get caught out here as Set is going to be the one under a lot of damage. Fran drops low. Here comes the Monsoon to keep them all alive, and Empowered Recalls should get Zero Zone out. Yes, Patterson does get back, and that'll be enough to save their inhibitors. Nice attempt by ViV, but Zero Zone back in control.
Yeah, I really actually want to see, I mean, hopefully we get to see a replay and maybe in the highlights, I might even be the key player as well of Kranix just getting caught. It was the Gragas again. And, we saw Sharks on the Gragas in the first game being able to body slam flash to pick off the members of ViV, but it's actually Patterson now on the Gragas that was able to body slam flash and kill off Vayne. I thought he actually survived the end, but I'm not too sure what actually got the Vayne in the end, who got, like, how Kranix died in the end. Was it piercing error? I don't know if you saw it yourself.
It was, so Patterson got the kill credit for it. I think it was a follow-up, and here's the follow-up through mid lane, as that is going to be Tyra's respawning, and it feels like Viv may very well have fallen apart, although here comes Zed into the fight. Kranix is trying to get anything, but he's already half health, already dropped so low, and he's got no health left to deal with Zero Zone, and that is going to be Zero Zone evening up the series. Good performance from them around that Elder Drake. Very calmly played. It looked desperate for a moment, but Zero Zone will even up our series 1-1 against Viv.
It just shows in Wild Rift, if you try and play for the late game, sometimes it's really, really hard because you don't really have the momentum. You don't have really the confidence because you have to give up so much pressure in the early game. 2 Dragons went to Zero Zone, 4 turrets went to Zero Zone, all these kills as well. And even though in that last team fight, it was really, really close, it was the catch onto Kranix and it was a little misposition for Kranix. But as you said, it was kind of the way that Zero Zone wanted to play. They were like, okay, we're going to start the Dragon, we're going to let Viv come towards us, and then we're going to try and make the picks. And that pick onto Kranix was a crucial part of this entire game.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how you have to play against Vayne and you have to immediately remove her from the fight, and that was the fight that opened it up for Zero Zone. The early game, it looked good for Zero Zone, other than this first blood for Viv. Like, they used this Varus very effectively, staying alive around mid lane, pushing it back out, and that's one of the things that slowed Viv down. But then we got into this lull period where, like, Patterson couldn't find the engages on Kranix. They couldn't get the damage to stick, but only one fight was needed for them to really secure the game.
Yeah, I feel like there was kind of multiple situations in this game as well where Viv and Flower in particular went a little bit too over aggressive in some team fights. We saw it twice up in the top side. One was the replay that we just saw, and then this one as well, which was a little bit back and forth, to be fair. And again, it's kind of the overextensions, but in the end, like you said, it was kind of all down to that last fight. We kind of were in a little bit of a stalemate for a little bit of a time because Viv wanted to play passive, but also Zero Zone didn't want to make any over-aggressive plays as well. And yeah, Gragas again, you know, the big man again. And we're going to see here how Kranix actually dies here. So it's Patterson. It was explosive cask in the end. I didn't realize that he still had it available. So yeah, he did. He saved it for the entire time. The body slam flash into the barrel as well for the damage and into explosive cast. And that's what we kind of spoke about. And that's what I kind of spoke about as well. I thought Patterson was going to go for more of this tank build because of Grassy on dying, but I guess he just took it, like you said, for lasing phase. He went for full damage. And when you get full damage Gragas, if you could just completely delete Vayne like he did, then that's it. That's kind of the fight won for Zero Zone.
Yeah, at that point, that's Patterson's entire job, is trade yourself 1-for-1. And if you win that, it's so valuable in comparison. Really strong performance from our nation. I'm glad to see that happen as the opposite to game one. We had the Lulu, which really didn't work. This time, Zero Zone go, okay, let's just pick the most standard bottom lane right now and dominate with it. And I think it's a much better look for Zero Zone.
Yeah, Zero Zone definitely look a lot more comfortable when they do a standard draft, I guess you could say. Oh my. Wow. Kranix only did 5,000 damage. That's wow. I'm shocked to see that damage graph, to be honest. But I mean, he didn't really get an opportunity really to get into any team fights. He was shut down so much in the early game. You can see that the gold lead early on was like 2,000-3,000 gold. You can see how much damage our nation did in the end as well. Also Patterson as well, 32,000 damage. You can see the gold graph here. The early game was really good for Zero Zone, and then ViV Esports was slowly starting to come back because their comp was scaling, but it's all just down to that last team fight. And as soon as Kranix gets caught, and as soon as he dies with that full AP Gragas build, then that's game over for ViV Esports, and there's no real way that they can come back.
It's something I wanted to talk about a little bit after game one, and now is even more so the case after game two. It's like Gragas is a champion that even without using his abilities has a ton of threat. Like, you cannot afford to be close to a Gragas that has flash up, because you will get body slam flash, you will get explosive cast, and especially if they're AP, you will die as a carry. So like, that's why Kranix's damage, as you said, is so low. He had no opportunities to get close enough to deal any of it. And when you're, the primary late game carry and you can't get close enough, then that's that moment where it's difficult to have an impact. Let's take a look at the play of the game. I know which one I think it would be. I think it's probably around that Infernal Drake, but nevertheless, at least we'll take a look back. Yes, it is. It had to be this.
Yeah, you can see the stasis was being used, but Patterson timed his barrel perfectly and then timed the explosive cast perfectly. And then after this as well, Flower was in the back line trying to do what he can to kind of distract the members of Zero Zone. But Patterson, MVP of this game, I think he, in the laning phase, it was a little bit rough for him, but I feel like when he got into later stages of the game, he landed multiple explosive casts, even around that first Herald as well, when he was able to knock Zed and Akali into his team there as well, just doing his job. Like you said, that was Patterson's job at the end of the day. All he needed to do was kill the Vayne. If you kill the Vayne, that's it. That's your job done.
So Sharks had an MVP Gragas performance in game 1. Patterson had an MVP Gragas performance in game 2. I wonder whether one of our teams will ban Gragas in game 3. We'll find out in just over 3.5 minutes where we come back for a quick break. Stick with us, the conclusion of ViV Esports versus Zero Zone.
You ready?
Welcome back, everybody, to week 3 of the Wild Rift EMEA Championships. We are in the middle of a banger series between ViV Esports and Zero Zone. It was exactly what we thought it was going to be, in the way of really interesting between two of our lesser known but still great teams in the upper bracket. Stuart, we finally had a little bit more of a standard game out of Zero Zone, and I think this is a much better look for the likes of our nation and Patterson.
Yeah, definitely. You can see that when they get on picks that, you know, they may be more comfortable with, maybe not like the Lulu Dura lane, more like the Varus and everything. And you can see that if Zero Zone are the ones that are being aggressive and they're on the kind of the upsides of the draft and on the Wild Rift, then they'll be able to accelerate and they'll be able to take down ViV Esports. And now it all comes down to the third and final game. The loser goes down to loser bracket and the winner progresses on.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction between today's games and the series we've already played this week. This is the upper bracket of a double elimination system, so neither team would be eliminated with a loss here today. They would drop down to the lower bracket and face one of the teams that we have already seen advance. So it is still a lot to play for. It is still, of course, an important step forward towards the semifinals of the upper bracket. But nevertheless, there is a lot on the line for today. I want to hear a little bit from Xscandrel about his key takeaways from Game 2 and what we maybe should expect for Game 3 between ViV and Zero Zone.
Thank you so much, Stress and Stuart. Yeah, of course. I think I want to go back to the draft. When Zero Zone look to draft standard, when they play things that are just known to be good in the meta, compositions that are known to be good, I think they look significantly better. The guys touched on it on the desk as well. Our Nation on Varus. Varus is, by a lot of pros, considered one of the most powerful picks in the Dragon Lane role. Patterson as well, just playing an AP Gragas. And I want to talk about Patterson specifically as well. He played super well. He built super well as well. That full AP Lichbane Gragas build designed specifically to isolate and deal with the Vayne. You saw it. Kranix could get nowhere near the team fights. In between the barrels from Gragas and the piercing arrows from Varus, the short range AD carrier Vayne had a really, really tough time in this game. And finally, just a little bit to look towards the next game. I think ViV, if they want to get back into this game, they need to be much more controlled in their early objectives. They need to do what they did in the first game. Really close out on those objectives early. I think I remember on the cast, Stuart saying, Tyrus is a little bit late to the party here. He wasn't able to kind of get control of that first Rifthold, and they were very, very sort of like scraping to get hold of that first Dragon. They just need to be a lot more proactive in setting up that early game, setting up the objectives, to have a better chance at dealing with Zero Zone. So those are my thoughts. I'll hand it back to Stress and Stuart.
Thanks, Xscandrel. Yes, we are narrowing in on picks and bans for game number 3. I think there were some really key takeaways from both games already. I'm starting to feel like Red Side, I don't want to say has a significant advantage, but in these teams that are more closely matched, I feel like there are too many power pick bruises that Blue Side just doesn't get a winning first pick every single time, right? I think you give over so much onto Red Side that we haven't had enough games to really figure that out yet, but I'm starting to get that gut feeling.
I mean, I always said that I feel like Red Side kind of has the advantage, really, because even though you're trading one champion in the first round of draft phase, you're trading it for 2, and you also have that last pick as well. And we've seen already the Set's been the priority for these two teams on Blue Side, and Set's lost twice. So maybe we are maybe seeing that Set is, slowly falling lower and lower in priority, even though I do think the Set support is probably the weakest role that he has to play in it. It definitely found out. But now we're getting into this all-important pick and ban phase. But interesting enough, it's Zero Zone that ban out the Varus. So they know that they're not looking for that first pick Varus.
Yeah, I think there are enough options with Varus off the board. I also think one of the other things that Red Side, that we do mention in draft a lot, but you can't really understate, is the ability for Gragas, for instance, to go between 3 positions. And just means you can go, okay, pick it, it'll be strong in one of them, and we'll just choose where it goes later. Lee Sin banned away on Red Side. I think that's the 3rd game in a row in this series, or at least it's the 3rd ban that we've seen. Yeah. Viv taking that away. Fiora gone as well. Olaf gone. Jace now gone. A lot of jungle presence. That's potentially 4 jungles banned. And that's where we saw Labunya end up on the Graves in game 1 of the day. So maybe Viv are trying to force that jungle matchup onto a negative side again. Set is still available though. I
feel like this is the exact same bans as game number 1, if I'm not mistaken. But now Zero Zone are the ones, the Zero Zone are the ones adapting. Instead of going for the Set, they're the ones that are going to change it up from the first game and go for Camille instead. Now it's a perfect opportunity to pick Gragas. Yep, I was going to say it as soon as it was picked. Perfect disengage as well for the Camille. It's been such a high priority in this entire series. But now what's going to be your second pick? It is still going to be Set as well. Now, if Set, Gragas is 100% win rate, Set 0% win rate. So
now they're on the same team though.
Yeah, exactly. Now they're on the same team.
This.
So now what's going to happen? But yeah, Morgana, here we go. We've seen our nation play Morgana before. As you said before in the first game, we called him the Stasis King on Morgana, and it kind of offers that, you know, bot lane AP carry that we've known from the tournament.
And Black Shield is going to deny a lot of what Gragas wants to do as well. So that's another thing here. Okay, we've gone from game 1 where there was like no carry at all to game 3 where Zero Zone are like, okay, Camille can carry, Morgana can carry, and let's bring a Kha'Zix as well. Picking up this early rotation jungler, not letting it drop to second rotation where we were going to already see presence going towards it in the bans, like wanting to pick up something they know that they can make work.
Yeah, I think the thing about again, really, you're going. This is really, really risky. I feel like already. I mean, you already have Camille that can jump onto you. Kha'Zix that can jump onto you. And the thing about Kha'Zix jumping onto you as well is if they wait for the Morgana Black Shield, then it's going to be really hard to crowd control the Kha'Zix. You also have Morgana as well, which you're going to really struggle in laning phase again, and you don't really have any tanks to struggle through. And you know. I talked to Kranix quite a bit, and obviously quite a few players know Kranix because Kranix used to be REC's friend, and he used to play on REC before, so we know that he can play other carries, but I'm just very surprised that he's always going for the Vayne.
And it's not like you're seeing 3 bruisers in front of you yet. You're not seeing multiple short-range tanks. Like an interesting pick that we've seen 0 presence on in this draft in all 3 games is Darius, who also deals with short-range tanks very, very well. So not that that's anything to do with the Vayne, it's just a very interesting point that has seen a lot of presence. Garen is still up as well as another pick, so maybe that's a thing Viv is saying, well, if you do end up drafting towards Garen, then we're going to just take you away by already picking that Vayne. But yeah, I think this is a very early Vayne to be showing.
It makes me feel like it's going to be mid lane Gragas again. I think this is definitely going to be mid lane Gragas. Very, very nice that Zero Zone has banned away the Lulu. I think Lulu Vayne is definitely one.
Our nation can't take it.
Probably. Our nation's like, yeah, give me Lulu. Give me Lulu Morgana dual lane.
Brand's like, no, not again.
No, I think it's it's just to deny the Lulu Vayne. I think that's kind of what ViV Esports were probably going towards. That's why they're kind of thinking now what they're going to pick, and they're going to pick the Janna again. 100% pick rate for Janna in this series. And it's definitely very interesting. I think when Lulu's off the board, I think Janna is definitely the best, I guess, second most protective enchanter. We do see Nami quite a bit, but I feel like Nami is a bit more of a aggressive, you know, team fight sort of support enchanter. But Janna allows you to have that disengage and gives you more shields and heals to help Vayne out.
Yeah, we might see Olaf or something like that as the last pick from Viv, depending on where this Gragas and the set are going to go. Thresh, we've seen a lot of priority on. Obviously, gives a lot of security down in that bottom lane. And now we get to figure out, is it Morgana in the middle lane or Morgana as the AP carry in bottom lane? I'm going to guess bottom lane carry, and then they're going to go elsewhere for their mid lane matchup. But obviously, they're assuming it's going to be Gragas, I would guess, in mid lane, although their flexibility can put Gragas in the jungle.
Ooh, the flexibility is there. It's going to be an RE mid lane. There's a lot of catch potential on this Zero Zone lineup. You know, Dark Binding, Charm, Hook, the Hextech Ultimatum as well by Patterson. If one member on ViV Esports gets caught out by any of this CC, there's no way they're going to move at all. No. They're not going to move at all. I think this is a perfect Mercury Treads game as well, because there's so many things that can stop you. Oh, a Nunu. So it's a little bit of frontline tankiness, a little bit more AP damage as well, but something that we have not seen for a long, long time.
A massive amount of zone control as well. So this is going to deny some of the ability of Ahri, Camille, and Kha'Zix to get to the Vayne. I do wonder, though, whether Vayne's still going to ever get close enough to attack anybody. So, I mean, Nunu's going to give him obvious subjective control that Nunu always will provide. Zone control in fights gives a little bit more magic damage. I know that a lot of people look at Nunu as like he builds tank and he still one-shots carries. That doesn't happen so much in competitive. That's mostly a solo queue thing. Nunu generally doesn't get full channels and, you know, that kind of damage down. People avoid the fights. So Zero Zone, I think, their composition may be undone by this Nunu. If they can't kill Kranix, then Viv theoretically can play for the late game, although that did not work out for them in game 2 of this series.
Yeah, again, I think Excoundrel said it perfectly. I think the way the ViV Esports wins this game, and I think we've seen it in both games as well, is just that early game pressure and just being able to get the early game priority. But I feel like you're not really going to get a lot of early game priority with this draft on ViV Esports. Now, one thing I did want to mention as well is that even though you have Nunu with the snowballs, with all that crowd control that I mentioned, that is actually going to stop Nunu. So there's a lot of ways of for Zero Zone to be able to stop the snowball and stop that kind of engage from ViV and from Nunu. You know, if you land a charm, if you land a hook, if you land a dark binding as well, Nunu will just stay in place and the snowball will just keep rolling for a little bit longer, but eventually it will time out. So I think this is going to be a very hard comp to execute for the side of ViV Esports, but anything is possible. This is Wild Rift, and we're finally getting into it. Game 3, and this is the decider stress. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're on to the Rift 4 game number 3 between ViV and Zero Zone, and didn't have a Nunu on our bingo card, but we also didn't have Lulu as a bot lane carry for game number 1. So stranger things than a Nunu have happened, but it's Minup on the set. It's Sharks once again on the Gragas. He had such a good performance in game number 1 that it's not a surprise. Flake comes back in the bottom lane, and Kranix is already under presence from this Morgana and this Thresh. Like, Thresh in the early game does so much damage with these empowered auto attacks once he's got into lane.
It's the Vayne pick, it's the Vayne pick again, and it's just, you just can't do anything at all. I mean, it was really, really good that that Fran took his E as his first ability, as you said, the empowered auto attacks. After, if you don't know, after certain periods of time, Thresh gets extra damage on his auto attacks that stack up from his third ability. So really, really nice that he was able to do that. And you can see, just walk up, use a flay, proc the aftershock so he gets a little bit more tanky, and you can just keep auto attacking. Then you got the pull afterwards as well by Morgana. And already, I mean, there's not really much that Kranix can do, but interesting enough, Tyrus is looking towards his mid lane, trying to get this mid lane priority so he can try and look to roam around the map, but already you're seeing the pressure and you're already seeing that this could be a very, very difficult early game for the side of ViV.
Yeah, that's the thing about this bot lane draft from Zero Zone is like Morgana and Thresh are basically what I would class as like the top individual champions in that role. Like I think Morgana is the most contested bot lane carry, Thresh perhaps the most contested support, and I think giving that over is a real detriment to ViV. They're going to have to rely on being able to play the game slowly and defensively in order to get Vayne enough time, and it did not work in the last game. Kranix, I should say Flower just avoiding the hook, and Kranix is desperately trying to stay in lane and get just as much as experience in the gold as Kranix can get.
I think the thing is with this this lane though, which is kind of similar to the previous lane for Kranix, is that you're always going to be pushing in as a Morgana. As Tyrus, I'm not too sure if you're going to be able to kill him.
Gonna get the full channel, but doesn't have
he's
his
just
ultimate. Yeah, Tyrus is in a lot of
okay, we're good.
Start the circus. The clown show is in town. Okay, I mean, Zero Zone get the kill, very obvious. Tyrus should not be taking that trade, and Patterson should not have had to burn flash. Doesn't matter though. We're going to go aggressive. Oh, Charm goes the wrong way as Sharks predicted it and goes for the flash across. A little bit scrappy in this early game. Not the cleanest of gank and kill attempts.
But again, the main thing to focus on is all Zero Zone. Zero Zone has the aggression. They have the trade. So you can see here that Tyrus, I thought he maybe would have been able to deal enough damage, but in the end, it's the extra shield as well. Patterson still had barrier. Patterson still had the pass available. This was quite funny. The double flash. I mean, they both burn flash, to be fair. So, it's not the worst for Tyrus in the end, but he does unfortunately die, and not the best starts for him, to be honest. He, across the board, we're still quite even on gold. Kranix is not falling too far behind in this game. And interesting enough, it's going to be Kranix down in this dual lane. I quite like this adaptation for ViV. I'm interested to see if they're going to carry on with this adaptation. Given Vayne the solo gold, given Vayne that side lane priority, but it doesn't look like they're going to be sticking with that as well. It looks like Shark is going to go back down to the dual lane, and Vayne is going to go to the mid lane. But I feel like that could have been a good adaptation for ViV, because Vayne's in the side lane. If she's getting a lot of solo experience and also all that gold as well, just be able to farm up. And obviously Vayne doesn't have that mid lane wave clear that you like to see most of the time, but in the end it is going to be Vayne the mid lane, and the first objectives are up. We're not going to get Elder Infernal this time.
Yeah, thankfully, the first time in this series. I agree with you on that. I actually would have liked to have seen Gragas stay in the mid lane. I think giving Vayne's solo experience, I think you touched on it already, is a significant thing. But also, like, now that Gragas has Luden's Echo, he should be able to clear at least the range minions. I haven't played enough Gragas to really know, but I feel like that's the case on PC, is like after one item, a fully charged cask blows the back minions up. But nevertheless, it doesn't really matter. Tyrus is going to land a snowball, doesn't do anything. Most of this game is going to be ViV, at least should be ViV, avoiding fights until they know that they can win the fight before that even starts.
Yeah, we've seen from the first two games that that's not really the way to go. Well, just in this series anyway. I'm not saying in general, I just mean in this series. But I mean, we took a quick look at the items, and the items at the moment, Zero Zone have complete items across the board, and ViV haven't. But it's a really good tornado.
Great start. That tornado is going to open this fight up, and that's a great pullback as Millip is going to try and land more damage. Does manage to survive through the majority of this fight. That's a great start to this fight as Kranix is going to try and get the first kill for himself. Can he get enough attacks down? Flashes forward, can't quite get the damage as Patterson flashes back out. It's a kill on the top side going over to Tyrus, and that was a beautiful start to the fight. Flowers Janna has been on point in the 2 games he's got it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's another tornado.
Yeah, as I said in the draft, this Janna has surprisingly just risen up in priority for this series. And again, we kind of spoke about it before the show, but I feel like it's more of like comfort picks. We don't really see Janna a lot in the meta, just because of how much she can struggle a little bit and how much, how easily the bruisers can kind of get onto her, even though she does have a lot of disengage. But now ViV are able to go back to base and come back into this fight. Now it's another fight.
Oh, Tyrus has been caught out this time around. Immediately had his absolute zero blocked. Sharks is on the bottom side of the rift, so no real way of contesting the second half of this fight. You mentioned that Janna for Flower defending. Kranix trying to get whatever he can here as Tyrus has to go back up off the consume. Yeah, that health has come back from Nunu thanks to it, but still Sharks is bot side, but they know that so is Sephiroth. And Kranix is playing like a madman, basically, like constantly on the front foot. I guess it's the difference between last game. You saw his damage numbers and was just like, can't have that happen again.
Yeah, we're going to go back to this Dragon fight and look at this. A double tornado into the flush in by Millip, just being able to suplex 2 members and pull in the members of Zero Zone. And after that, there's not really much you could do on the side of Zero Zone. Just a little bit of mispositioning in the end, unfortunately, for them. And then after that, they were able to go back to base for Esports, and they were able to try and go back to the Rift Herald. But for them, they lost the Rift Herald in the end. But a pretty good early game so far for ViV Esports. And if they can carry on getting this gold lead, then with this late game team comp as well, with the Vayne, kind of Set could do quite a bit in the late game. You've got Nunu as well. That's just going to become that big beefy frontline tank as well. And really, really good stuff for ViV Esports.
Yeah, I think one thing I've not really thought about until this point in the game is like the way that Morgana has had a lot of impact in team fights is essentially like she follows up on the likes of Camille, the likes of Kha'Zix to actually walk into the fight as the front line's going in and basically like try and walk the dog all the way through and just like catch as many people as possible. Nunu somewhat denies that, right? It's like Morgana is squishy enough that if she walks through a channel of absolute zero, she's in danger, despite Black Shield. I think that might be one area that we might see teams kind of focus out on Morgana to prevent her from actually crossing through fights.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point, actually. One that I didn't really think of myself, to be fair. It's a really good point. I mean, you have like the Black Shield that if you do want to use it, if the absolute zero does happen, you're not going to get slowed or anything. So you can still walk through it if you're our nation. But I mean, if Nunu could do enough damage to the Morgana as well, it's not too bad. But as I mentioned in drafting, Mercury treads across the board for her the esports. As you can see, they don't want to get charmed or hooked or Dark Binding. I forgot the name there for a second. Dark Binding for a long amount of time. But yeah, this is definitely a very, very interesting one. The Infernal Drake's gone over to ViV Esports as well. So you are going to have that scaling damage and extra AD and AP that you're going to be getting from the Infernal Drake, which is going to help ViV Esports and definitely Kranix out a lot.
A quick QSS as well for Vayne, for Kranix, knowing that if just any crowd control lands, you've got to basically Captain Jack it. We'll talk about that as we go through. That's a League of Legends term for those of you that don't follow PC. Rift Herald's going to go through the top side and eventually crash it, but Millip is there. It will get the tower. Millip's going to try and fight it. with the Janna shield, not quite enough. And now they're going to rotate out towards mid lane. This is really quick from Zero Zone. I like the way that they're playing it. Push into top, push into mid, and try and capitalize. Bot tower has gone over to Viv, and they're going to at least maintain their gold lead for now.
Yeah, the first tower did go over to Zero Zone, so they're going to get a little bit of a little bit of that gold deficit back. But now the Dragon's up again, and ViV Esports are playing with a lot more confidence this game they did in the previous one with this Vayne.
Yeah, a lot more confidence, and that's exactly how they need to play. They're going to try and deny this engage, and I mean, it's so difficult to steal an objective against Nunu. Consume smite combination does, like, depending on what point you're in the game, it's between 1,500 and like 2,000 damage to the dragons. So there's not really any way of getting in there with just the jungle smite.
Yeah, there's no way that Kha'Zix can jump in. I mean, maybe Kha'Zix can jump in and Q smite, but you're never going to do as much damage as a Nunu. Like you said, probably like 1,500 to 2,000 damage that you could just easily just use the consume and then smite afterwards. And yeah, that's 2 dragons now over to the side of ViV. You know, 2 of the strongest dragons as well. If you talk to a lot of pro players, they would say that the Cloud Dragon is probably one of, if not the strongest, just behind the Infernal Dragon as well. So a lot of movement speeds for ViV Esports, and also a lot of damage as well they're going to be able to get, as well as the Dark Binding lands.
Yeah, that's enough of the damage down onto Flower. They don't quite get the kill. Here comes the Monsoon. It's going to keep him alive. Stasis came out from Labunya, and he's going to desperately try and get to top side, but that's the easy kill. They need to give it to Kranix, and they do. Important kill gold, at least like given to this Vayne. That's 2 kills now, and it's a very different game to the last one. And look, Viv are going to be able to defend mid while Vayne and Nunu shred through the Rift Herald on the top side. This game is going a lot more in the way that Viv wanted to around this Vayne.
Yeah, I really like the idea actually of Zero Zone though. Even though the jungler got caught out, they knew they couldn't take the Rift Herald in the end, so they tried to take the mid lane tower, but ViV Esports were able to rotate as well, and Kranix and Tyrus were just able to take the Rift Herald by themselves. So really, really well played. As you said, you know, a completely different game to the second game, and ViV Esports, like I said, playing with a lot more proactive in this game to the previous one. Like the previous one, they were very, very slow in the second game, and they were kind of waiting for this Vayne to scale up. But this game, they're just like, okay, even though we have a Vayne, we can play a little bit more proactive because, you know, we have the Gragas, we have the set to make plays, and the Nunu as well. So we're going to look to try and take it to Zero Zone.
I like what Zero Zone have been trying to do this game.
Wow.
Their draft has been denied, basically, in a way, by this last Nunu pick. And Millip's in a little bit of trouble here. He's going to have to try and get his way out using the ultimate. And here Viv might be struggling to push through, as here comes Saphiro into the fight. Tyrus is going to... Ooh, that's a charm landing on Kranix, and did have to use that QSS. Here's the Absolute Zero, just buys a little bit of time as... The Tyrus is getting kept alive by Janna. The kill has come through, though, from Sharks into the backline, and all of the health bars were low on Viv, but they didn't get picked up. Now Kranix is still above half health, trying to get anything that he can from here, and it's Millip from the side. No ultimate, but will be able to at least tank some stuff up as he tries to get into the fight. Doesn't get any damage put down on him, and Viv, that looked risky for a moment, but Kranix, that QSS coming in clutch.
Yeah, wow, I've completely lost my words for a second. Yeah, I'm so sorry. That was a 4 versus 5 as well, because Millip was down in the Dura lane the entire time. And for ViV Esports, they just played the disengage really, really well. You know, Flowers ultimate, the explosive cast as well to disengage.
Ooh,
and also
Patterson.
as well, oh, Patterson, you're in a bit of trouble.
Hookshot is going to get Camille at least a little bit out of there, but will get interrupted as Patterson stasis. Trying to buy time for our nation, trying to buy time for that cooldown of the hookshot, but it is not enough. And Viv, 6 kills to 1.
You can see how tanky Nunu is as well. And to be honest, I didn't really think about this as well, but Zero Zone don't really have a lot of consistent damage. They have a lot of, you know, burst damage, I guess you can say. They have a little bit of consistent damage with Morgana, but it's honestly, it's not really enough. And you can see that they're really, really struggling to get through this Nunu. There was 5 members of Zero Zone trying to take down Nunu, but he was able to use his ultimate. He got the Monsoon as well from Janna in the end. And just a lot of healing, a lot of shielding, and in the end, it was ViV Esports that came out on top. They got the mid lane tower from that as well. So again, even though they don't have the mid lane wave clear, they can now start to open up the map a little bit as well. And one thing I want to mention as well is look at the vision control as well for ViV Esports. You can see there's 4 wards over to the side of Zero Zone's jungle. You got 2 over the top side, 1 in the mid lane, which unfortunately just expired. Another one expired.
But 2 of them just
like,
expired,
okay.
but it was
Do you know
good
what?
vision
Completely ignore my point.
Welcome to casting. You're like, they have great vision control and it all dies. Now, what that does tell you is they had great vision control and it allowed them to make the last set of plays. So ViV will look to re-establish that kind of vision control and get their emphasis. However, Nunu's just going to solo down Dragon because why not? This is what Nunu does, is he just stands in front of objectives and takes them with no real way of contesting. And that's what the vision control buys, is before those wards died, they saw where all of Zero Zone were and Nunu can just solo down the Dragon.
Yeah, Nunu was completely fine because, like you said, you know, that vision control that they did have that I kind of messed up a little bit. But
Kranix. Oh, you are playing with fire, Kranix. How did none of that land? And Kranix is still like half health, manages to at least get away from it. That was a little bit over aggressive from what we've seen out of ViV, and there's some damage down onto Labunya. ViV will back themselves away, reset, and just steady themselves after getting that 3rd dragon of the game.
I mean, he has QSS, he has Mercury Treads as well, so I guess he just feels really, really confident with himself, to be honest, because even if he does get caught out, he can use the QSS straight afterwards as well, and I guess he feels confident with his reaction times as well, and with his thumbs and fingers that he likes to play as well. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting play by Kranix, I guess you could say in the end, but when Kranix does have a lot of confidence, this is what he does. But wow, they are going to rush this.
Yeah, it's already down to 7,000 health. This is gone. Camille showed bot side, and actually Millip is there defending. Lantern goes out for just vision control. Labunya is never going to get there. Flower does get locked down, but this Monsoon is going to keep him alive, and I think this may very well be the end of the game as Kranix has already picked up 2 kills in the fight, looking for more. Sharks can't quite get the crowd control to land, and now it's all about the Baron buff minions. I think this is more like the ViV we saw in week 1 with Vayne than we saw in game number 2. Kranix is going to go forward, does get hooked. QSS comes through, trying to lock down our nation, and they are pushing through the top side. They get the kill onto Thresh. Couldn't quite finish off our nation, and Patterson are trying to defend. Stasis forced out, but it's going to be the inhibitor tower going down as ViV are looking to close out this series. All 5 members strong, and they're pushing down the 2nd inhibitor of the game. It's only a matter of time, but 10 seconds left on the death timers means they do not want to overextend. They will back away with an 11,000 gold lead.
Yeah, that's the great thing about Nunu as well, is that you can look for these kind of crazy, aggressive Baron plays and trying to burst it down, especially when you have a Vayne as well that could do a lot of damage to neutral objectives. You have that Consume, you have that Smite combo, and it was Zero Zone just couldn't get close. You know, the hook lands, everything else does land, but Flower's just standing there, and look at the suplex over the wall as well. Kranix was able to get a double kill. You see Kranix as well, boom, flashing in the back line as well. He tried to get the triple. He really wanted the pentakill. We saw in week 1 as well, Kranix was so close to getting the first pentakill of this tournament, but unfortunately, we haven't seen a pentakill yet on either side. We haven't seen a pentakill at all in WRC, but maybe eventually, hopefully soon we'll get a pentakill.
At some point we'll get one, and it'll be worth the wait, I'm sure. At this point it's going to be like the world's worst pentakill. But I mean, I think this draft from ViV has really undone Zero Zone. I think the Nunu has done so much work, given the composition of Zero Zone doesn't have, outside of Camille and Thresh, doesn't really have that like hard engage that gets a fight started and forces ViV to fight. And between Gragas, Janna, and Nunu, they just can survive long enough, deny enough of the fight that nobody can threaten Kranix.
Yeah, it kind of comes back to the point, really, that they don't really have a way to really do enough damage to the front line, to be honest, on the side of Zero Zone. You know, when you have a Nunu, when you have a Set as well, that's just sitting in the front line and just tanking up all the damage. You can see Kranix has even gone for Bloodthirster as well. So even if there's a lot of damage that comes in, he can heal a lot. He has Blade Rune King plus the Bloodthirster now, so just a lot of healing, a lot of damage. And yeah, I honestly don't really see a way of Zero Zone getting back into this game. 3 dragons already gone for the side of ViV. They got 2 inhibitors down as well, and they're gonna have to come up with a miracle here to try and come back into this game.
Yeah, the normal way to come back would be stealing an objective, but against a Nunu, that's really difficult. GA is still available, doesn't even matter. Haymaker from long range is going to get Mullet the kill. Now they're trying to chase down onto Fran, as Kranix hasn't really felt his impact in this fight yet, but there's a double kill for the Set. Gonna chase through as our nation forced to stasis. There's absolute zero chance for Zero Zone in this game. They have been zoned out, and ViV will advance through the upper bracket. They are going to take this game. It's going to take a couple more seconds, but that is a dominating performance by Kranix and ViV 2-1 over Zero Zone to step to the round of 4 of the upper bracket.
Yeah, that's what we like to see from ViV Esports. That was kind of what we were expecting coming into the second game as well. But maybe they were just a little bit hesitant because they were kind of worried about the team comp that Zero Zone drafted. But as you said, the draft was really, really well played by ViV Esports in this third game. And just overall, just played with a lot more confidence that we know that ViV Esports can do.
Yeah, that was more of what we were expecting from Kranix. Like Kranix in game 2, we were like, wow, that's uncharacteristically quiet. Whereas like this game, flashing forward, getting the engages, and making sure these team fights went their way.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see in these fights as well that Kranix was just playing with absolute fire this entire game, flashing forward, like you said, tumbling forward as well, and just really easily just being able to kind of have free reign across this entire game. But Zero Zone did have their chances, to be fair, but as I said during the game, you know, they don't really have any way to get through this Nunu, and this Nunu last pick was kind of the difference, really, I feel like, in this game.
Yeah, and we came into the series saying, hey, ViV, they actually are really smart drafting. That was one of Excalibur's points. It's like, ViV's draft, you have to pay attention to what they're doing. And this is where we really saw the effect come through. I think, for me, I'm still looking at Sharks as even though game 3 was quite quiet, he still had the impact that he needed to have in the team fights. He didn't need to carry this game, but still landed the explosive casks, caused a lot of pressure. You can see him in action here in this team fight. And it bought so much time for Kranix to actually get the work done.
Yeah, you can see even the set damage in the end there as well, the haymaker, the true damage, just still disgusting damage. I still don't know why set is allowed to just tank up a lot of damage and also get a huge massive shield but true damage. But anyway, yeah, I mean, the draft overall I feel like was really, really interesting. We saw high priority on set. We saw high priority on Janna as well, which was really, really surprising. And then, you know, high priority on Gragas, which kind of we expect to see now in the meta with Gragas. Just you can see in all 3 of these games, really, just seeing how much pressure and what Gragas can do as well. And going into this as well, I mean, going into this game, we saw this series, sorry, we were speaking about it. Even interesting enough, Millip is the one that actually does the most damage this game. I'm quite surprised by that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a little surprising. I think one interesting thing coming from this game, and you can see how consistently ViV closed this out, it's the first time we're really seeing Morgana falter, like in a notable way. And I feel like it's because drafting around her inability to stay in fights when she's kind of like the only one that's able to stay alive. I think that's one way that we're going to see teams play against it. I don't know that Nunu is distinctly a Morgana counter, but in this game, with the draft that was around the Morgana, I think it made it really difficult for our nation to actually get any damage, to stay on people and look at getting any kills.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said during the game, you know, if you use the absolute zero from Nunu, there's no real way that Morgana can get into it and, you know, flash forward and ultimate, which we've seen Morganas do before. We've seen our nation do before as well. Morgana in that first week, we saw him flash forward, use the ultimate, but there's no real way that you could do that. I think if during that game, I don't even think, I remember him really using the ultimate at all, if I'm totally honest with you. There was no real way that he can get into the backline, use the ultimate to try and zone out the members of ViV Esports. And like I said, it was kind of Nunu that seemed like it was a difference. It could be very interesting now, as we kind of, you know, adapt during this meta, as we kind of see where the meta is shaping up to be.
Yeah, the interesting one was perhaps during the last fight. But yeah, we're going to have to see whether Morgana still has presence during the rest of the day. We're going to head over to Excalibar, who is with one of our winning players for an interview.
Hi, Flower. First of all, massive congratulations for the win. That was honestly a pretty tense series. Definitely in the second game, we had our worries. Just talk to me a little bit about, firstly, I'd love to get your opinion on the draft from Zero Zero in the first game. Like the Lulu Thresh bot with the triple bruiser. Like what was your thoughts on the draft that you saw there?
I thought the Lulu was only troll pick. Maybe they wanted to deny us the Kaisa Lulu. And we had 3 Kaisa DPS and a good frontline. They couldn't pass through, so I think it was a pretty easy game for us.
Yeah, I think that made a lot of sense. And then obviously the second game, you guys ran into a bit of trouble. What do you think went wrong in the second game for you that just meant that you weren't able to do what you wanted to do?
Well, the big problem was Varus, and we couldn't deal with his poke. And on side lane we had Z, but we didn't take a single tower on the side lane, and then we couldn't really engage. They had a lot of disengage with Gragas, and dot up to the match, like it was a really hard game, and we maybe respected them a bit sometimes. We could have made better engage.
That makes a lot of sense. I think now for you, going forward in the competition, you're now into the top 4 of the winners bracket. How do you feel about your chances as a team? Because I've always called you guys like the dark horses of the tournament. You feel like you could win on your day. Like how do you feel matching now into the likes of Game Lord and Queso and Rix?
I think we are the underdog, but we still have our chances. We have a really good player on the team, a good coach, good manager, and I think we have our chances.
I hope so. I think you guys have certainly shown that you've got some real mettle on your team, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys go further in the competition. Flower, thank you so much. Congratulations, and we can't wait to see you again when you face up with the winners bracket next week.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Great to hear from Flower. Kind of agree on the Lulu point. I try not to, as a broadcaster, be like, that's a troll pick. But when you hear the players do it, and knowing that last week when we had a Mumu support, they were like, oh, whatever, we just picked it because it was there. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna see more Lulu in that carry role. So, nevertheless, great to hear from Flower. Definitely one of the underdogs, but I think that gives them a strength in their position going against some of the better teams. So maybe there's a little bit less pressure going through the top 4. But they have advanced to the top 4. Let's take a look at the play of that game and see exactly where it all went wrong for Zero Zone, who they're not out, but they will have to play through the lower bracket. This was our play of the game.
Yeah, we're going to go through the play of the game now, and it was the one towards the Rift Herald, the double body slam again by Sharks, and Sharks again, 2 games on the Gragas, the one in the first game, and also this third game as well. Definitely, for me, a MVP contention for this entire series, and it just shows you kind of the presence and what Gragas can offer as well, and why Gragas is slowly starting to become a very, very high priority pick.
Yeah, I would say so, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if Sharks, from his Game 1 performance and Game 3, took home the MVP. Let's find out. Let's have it confirmed. I hope it is Sharks from how well he played. The secret is I don't know until we go live, but I'm seeing this clip, and it's definitely Sharks. 24 KDA on the series. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely disgusting play by Sharks in the end. And we saw a little bit of mid lane Gragas in the first few weeks. We saw Snitch, I believe it was, in the first few weeks playing mid lane Gragas, but we're definitely starting to see it a lot more now. We saw Ryder Zito play it, we've seen Sharks play it as well, and kind of just how much damage the Gragas can deal. And yeah, you can see multiple times he was able to land the explosive cast, and if you can land the ultimate with the Gragas, if you follow that up with the body slam, with all that crowd control that you can deal as well, and all the damage that you can deal with Gragas as well. And going into the next series, it's going to be interesting to see, have Game Lord and have Team Queso been watching? Are they going to have the same sort of priority on Gragas as well? But that's going to be our next series. I'm really looking forward to that one.
It is going to be our next series. That is going to start in just a few minutes' time. Stick with us for the break. We'll be back. Game Lord, Team Queso. This is a matchup you do not want to miss.